Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. When my archer talent is maxed out, I will kill all races. Chapter 81. The importance that the Wuyu Education Bureau attaches to talent planning can be seen from the grand scale of Qinlongyuan. After coming out of Zhang Zesheng's place, Chen Qi followed the person responsible for allocating accommodation and walked towards the dormitory area. Rows of simple and elegant small buildings gradually come into view. These small buildings only have 2 floors, but they exude a quiet historical charm. Unlike Yandu Wuhan University and other Wuhan universities, the scenery in front of you is like a paradise. Looking up, you can see the ancient pavilions and pavilions standing in an orderly manner beside the lake, complementing each other with the green lake water, forming a harmonious and quiet picture. On the lake, the breeze blew, creating ripples, as if whispering. It is surrounded by greenery and dense swaying trees. Sometimes a few birds flew up to the branches and chirped. The scenery in front of him made Chen Qi couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Audacious. The place where he has lived for more than 10 years is like 2 worlds compared to the scenery in front of him. There were very few people around, and even if they did show up, they would just look at Chen Qi and then leave in a hurry again. He already understood this kind of look clearly after coming out from Zhang Zesheng. The military is a weak side in the talent plan. The aristocratic family and Wuhan University are where geniuses gather. People from aristocratic families will enter Wuhan University, but they do not belong to Wuhan University. They have already been marked with the imprint of aristocratic families. Half an hour later, Chen Qi stopped. In front of me, there is a simple and elegant small building. There is a house number hanging at the door. Number 45. Pushing the door open, the man accompanying him handed the key to Chen Qi, then turned and left. Chen Qi didn't care either. The person who accompanied him just now obviously didn't want to communicate with him. It seems that they belong to both Wuhan University and the aristocratic family. But the greater probability is that he is from a noble family. Pushing the door in, the scenery is different from the simple and elegant scenery outside. The decoration in the small building is very modern. TV, refrigerator, washing machine, etc. are all available. He stretched out his fingers and touched the table and took a look. It was spotless. It looks like someone has cleaned it before. Looking up and down, Chen Qi sat on the sofa, thinking about his future plans. By the way, why haven't Xingyuan and Lao Zhang arrived yet? It wasn't until this moment that Chen Qikai suddenly thought of the 2 of them. He was thinking the whole time. As soon as I arrived, I was given a lot of news by my master. Make a call. Chen Qi, are you here? Zhang Ruya's voice sounded, with excitement in her tone. Yeah, Chen Qi nodded, and then asked, aren't you here yet? Haha, here we are. I met an acquaintance and I forgot to call you while chatting. Zhang Ruya said with a smile. Beside him, a girl like a Lolita was looking at Zhang Ruya curiously. What number are you at? I'll come find you. When Chen Qi reported the house number, Zhang Ruya hung up the phone, and then said to the girl in front of her, let's go and let you meet a genius. Zhang Beidao asked curiously, is this Chen Qi you've been talking about all day? Well, that's him. Are you handsome? If not, I won't go. Quote. Sitting cross-legged on the sofa, holding a cartoon headrest in his arms. The slender white legs are intertwined together, which is really beautiful. Handsome. Zhang Ruya nodded without hesitation. Although Chen Qi is not as handsome as Su Xingyuan, he is handsome and handsome. Really? Zhang Beidao's eyes lit up and he stood up from the sofa. He is 1.6 meters tall, barely reaching Zhang Ruya's chest. Looking up at Zhang Ruya, there seemed to be stars twinkling in her eyes. Really? Zhang Ruya knew Zhang Beidao too well. Full member of the Appearance Association. Everyone I know is also handsome. He was thinking that Su Xingyuan should be in line with Zhang Beidao's aesthetics. Zhang Beidao, S-level Ice Element Talent, 7th level warrior. She is 18 years old this year, with a baby face, and there is no way to tell that she is a genius at the 7th level of a warrior. In the living room, after hanging up Zhang Ruya's phone, Chen Qi dialed Su Xingyuan's phone. The sound is a bit noisy. Chen Qi, are you here? The noise became quieter, and it seemed that Su Xingyuan was in a slightly quieter place. Well, we're here, haven't you come yet? I just called Lao Zhang. Give me the house number and I'll be there shortly. Okay. The phone hangs up. Chen Qi laughed. He heard the voice that came from the phone just now clearly. It was obviously a girl's voice. Could it be that this kid went out to be cool? There was a knock on the door. Zhang Ruya and Zhang Beidao appeared in front of Chen Qi. Chen Qi. Zhang Ruya greeted. Chen Qi smiled and nodded in response, looking at Zhang Beidao who was walking behind Zhang Ruya. Zhang Beidao, who is 1.6 meters tall, follows Zhang Ruya like a giant and a child. It's okay. Walking out from behind Zhang Ruya, Zhang Beidao looked Chen Qi up and down, and said with a hint of disgust. It seemed that he was a little dissatisfied with the fact that Chen Qi was a handsome guy. Chen Qi. Zhang Ruya smiled and explained. This is Xiao Dao, S-level ice element talent. Chen Qi nodded with a smile and said hello, hello. The three of them sat down. Listening to Zhang Ruya and Chen Qi chatting, Zhang Beidao looked at Chen Qi with an appraising look while listening. Chen Qi's appearance doesn't seem to have anything eye-catching. Apart from being a little handsome, there seems to be nothing worth paying attention to. But how could a person who could be called a genius by Zhang Ruya be so simple? Xiao Zhang said you are talented as an archer. Zhang Beidao suddenly asked. Chen Qi was startled when he heard Xiao Zhang's voice. What the hell, Xiao Zhang? Does Zhang Ruya seem to match the title Xiao Zhang? Zhang Ruya looked embarrassed. Facing Chen Qi's strange eyes, she explained, well, she is my sister. Chen Qi. No. Are you sure she's your sister? Chen Qi couldn't connect the two people in front of him as siblings. Zhang Ruya has a fleshy face and a strong body, but the Zhang Beidao in front of her has a completely different style of painting from him. Beautiful body and soft body. She is very beautiful, with a lowly face, and she looks like a genius at the 7th level of warrior. Zhang Ruya glanced at Chen Qi helplessly and nodded in reply. It seems that I have experienced this situation many times. When the two walked together, no one would regard them as siblings. Zhang Beidao glared at Zhang Ruya, gritted his teeth and said, Zhang Ruya, do you think I, as your sister, have embarrassed you? I didn't, it's impossible, I didn't say it. Zhang Ruya waved her hands hurriedly, denying 3 times in a row quickly and steadily. You know the truth. Zhang Beidao nodded with satisfaction, then looked at Chen Qi and continued to ask, is your talent S-level? In her opinion, the person who can be talked about every day by Zhang Ruya, an A-level talent, must have at least A-level or even S-level talent. No, Chen Qi shook his head. Then you are A-level. Zhang Beidao frowned. No, Chen Qi continued to shake his head and replied with a smile, I was level E when I awakened. E-level talent. Zhang Beidao's eyes widened with surprise on his face. After being stunned for a moment, she shook her head. It was as if he was getting rid of the messy thoughts in his mind, and then looked at Zhang Ruya, is he telling the truth? Of course Zhang Ruya knew why Zhang Beidao looked like this. He nodded. Sister, Chen Qi is indeed an E-level talent. I have read his information. Zhang Beidao was even more surprised when he said this. The strange eyes seemed to want to see Chen Qi clearly inside and out. He was amazed. It's strange, it's impossible. How can an E-level talent be cultivated at such a fast speed? As he spoke, he reached out to grab Chen Qi, as if he wanted to get to know him more deeply. Sister, what are you doing? Chen Qi frowned slightly. Although Zhang Beidao was beautiful and had a delicate body, he still couldn't accept that Zhang Beidao reached out and tried to catch him. Zhang Ruya stopped Zhang Beidao's movement and said, Sister, can you be more reserved? You're so reserved. Zhang Beidao's eyes widened and he glared at Zhang Ruya, and then seemed to realize that his actions just now were not good. He withdrew his hand from grabbing Chen Qi and fell into deep thought. Creak. The sound of pushing the door sounded. Su Xingyuan walked into the room. Xingyuan. Zhang Ruya and Chen Qi greeted each other. But the next second, the two raised their eyebrows. Su Xingyuan's hair is slightly messy and his clothes are wrinkled. Even his breathing was a little unsteady. What's going on? Chen Qi narrowed his eyes, looked at Su Xingyuan, and asked. It's okay. Su Xingyuan waved his hand, glanced at Zhang Beidao, who was sitting on the sofa in deep contemplation, and explained, when I came in here today, I met a lot of people. I didn't like the looks of those people, so I sparred with them for a few moves. Zhang Ruya opened her mouth and was about to speak when Zhang Beidao on the sofa suddenly woke up from his meditation. He said with a smile. It's not that you like others, it's that others deliberately provoke you. Su Xingyuan's face stiffened. It's all the same. They don't like me, and I just don't like them either. As he said that, he looked up at Chen Qi and Zhang Ria and asked, when you two came here, you should have seen the looks in those people's eyes. Chen Qi nodded. Su Xingyuan's temperament is different from his own. He likes to show off and has a slightly arrogant personality. When an arrogant person meets an even more arrogant person, conflict will naturally arise between the two parties. Zhang Ria looked at Su Xingyuan and nodded, indicating that he had also seen it. But in fact, he had never experienced such eyes since he entered Qinlongyuan. And all this is because Zhang Beidao exists by his side. You both have seen it, so I don't need to say more. Su Xingyuan sat back on the sofa and took a breath. What he said was a sparring match, but how could any of the people who appeared in Qinlongyuan be weak? Although his strength has improved, he is only at the 7th level of a warrior. There is still a long way to go before reaching the 8th level. Among all the people present, only Chen Qi, a 9th level warrior. Su Xingyuan sighed. Don't tell me, there are many strong people here. Anyone you meet on the road has the strength of an 8th level warrior. If my talent wasn't suitable for attacking, I might not be able to defeat that person. As he spoke, he showed the injury on his arm. A wound that was 20 centimeters long appeared in front of several people. Chen Qi and Zhang Ria's expressions both changed. Is this still a sparring match after being so cruel? Zhang Ria's face was very ugly, and her tone was filled with anger. Chen Qi squinted his eyes, a cold look flashing across his eyes. This is only the first day. Su Xingyuan was provoked and injured during the sparring match. There was no blood flowing out of the wound on the arm, but it still made people feel scared. Compared to Chen Qi and Zhang Ria, Zhang Beidao on the side just glanced at the wound on Su Xingyuan's arm and then looked away. He said calmly, I can't tell that you are not only handsome, but also have decent strength. Su Xingyuan grinned and wanted to speak, but Zhang Beidao's next words made him freeze in place. It's just so stupid. Who is this? Su Xingyuan looked at Chen Qi and the two with doubts in his eyes. He didn't have time to ask before, but now his eyes fell on Zhang Beidao, and his eyes casually swept over the slender legs without revealing any trace. Chen Qi glanced at Zhang Ria. My sister, Zhang Beidao. Zhang Ria introduced her. With the previous lessons, he seemed to be very honorable in introducing her this time. This attitude caused Zhang Beidao to raise the corners of his mouth and reveal a smile. Ha! Su Xingyuan widened his eyes and looked at the Lolita Zhang Beidao in front of him in disbelief. His eyes kept looking back and forth at the siblings in front of him. Such a look made Zhang Beidao frown, and after a moment Su Xingyuan seemed to be discouraged. Leaning on the sofa, he asked with a smile, Sister, do you still accept your younger brother? Zhang Beidao pouted. I won't accept it. Su Xingyuan is indeed pretty, but she is not a nymphomaniac. Change the topic. You just entered Qinlongyuan, and you don't know the situation inside yet. Zhang Beidao's little mouth opened slightly and his voice sounded, everyone who can come in is a genius. No one wants to admit that they are worse than anyone else. The main reason you were provoked is because you are from the military. Su Xingyuan was stunned. What's the problem from the military? Zhang Ria's expression moved slightly but she said nothing. Chen Qi already had some understanding of the current situation through Zhang Zesheng's mouth. The aristocratic family, Wuhan University, and the military are involved, and the military is the one with the least geniuses, so it will definitely be treated differently. But Su Xingyuan was provoked inexplicably, which made Chen Qi a little curious. If you are provoked, it is because you are carrying the blame. Su Xingyuan has no blame to bear. Zhang Beidao's voice continued to sound. The reason why you were provoked is because they don't want you to stay here, let alone let you enter the talent plan. What do you mean? Su Xingyuan asked doubtfully, and Chen Qi looked at each other and exchanged glances. Zhang Beidao glanced at Zhang Ria. Zhang Ria hesitated and took over. Profits. There are too many people involved in the talent plan, and there are also many forces. Resources are what everyone wants. As far as I know, many people in this family regard people from the military as their opponents. We want to eliminate the military personnel as soon as possible. After speaking, he smiled mysteriously, and then asked, do you know how many geniuses each of the three parties have this time? You know. Chen Qi raised his eyebrows slightly. There was something wrong with Zhang Ruya since she was a new recruit. He was the first to know Shang Han's identity, and then directly revealed Hu Zhaofeng's identity and strength. That time Chen Qi really thought he had remembered it wrong. Later, I went downstairs to look at the dormitory, but the information originally posted on the wall introducing the Beast Suppression Army had been taken down in advance. Now it seems that maybe it was Zhang Ruya who did it. And now listening to what he meant, he actually even knew the number of people participating in the talent plan of each of the three parties this time. Su Xingyuan narrowed his eyes with a bright smile on his face. It seemed that she didn't understand what Zhang Ruya meant. Waiting for Zhang Ruya to speak. As the university with the most talents, Wuhan University has a total of 2,348 people entering the talent program. This includes but is not limited to geniuses from Yandu Martial Arts University, Longxiang Martial Arts University, Gupo Martial Arts University, Fengyan Martial Arts University, Yinghao Martial Arts University, etc. This time, almost all freshmen from various Wuhan universities are included. Zhang Ruya opened her mouth, without hiding anything, and directly pointed out the number of people participating in Wuhan University this time. This was the first time that Chen Qi and Su Xingyuan knew about the number of talents in the talent plan. When they heard this number, they were surprised. But if you think about it carefully, you will understand. Wuhan University has a large number of universities in China. There are nearly 1,000 top Wuhan universities plus first-rate, second-rate, etc. in total. Even if a Wuhan university singles out one genius, there are almost 1,000 people. There are only more than 2,000 people from Wuhan University selected into the talent plan this time, which is not a large number. Zhang Ruya also knows that such a number is not an exaggerated number for Wuhan University. Then he continued. Aristocratic family, there are a total of 892 people participating in the talent plan. So few. Su Xingyuan was surprised. There are more than 2,000 people in Wuhan University, but there are not even 1,000 people here in the aristocratic family. Before Zhang Ruya could speak, Zhang Beidao on the side sneered, "Isn't this enough? Do you know how many aristocratic families there are?" Chen Qi and Su Xingyuan shook their heads. Chen Qi was born as an ordinary citizen, how could he know these things? Although Su Xingyuan's parents are both martial arts sects, he is still a long way from being in contact with aristocratic families. Zhang Beidao stretched out a finger. One family? No way, there are so few. Su Xingyuan was stunned and said aloud. Zhang Beidao rolled her eyes at him, gritted her teeth and said, "You are such a pig. Who are you calling a pig brain?" Su Xingyuan admitted that Zhang Beidao in front of him was beautiful, but he couldn't bear Zhang Beidao's contemptuous eyes and tone. Zhang Ruya hurriedly stopped Su Xingyuan. He was afraid that the two of them would start a fight. "Humph, I'm too lazy to pay attention to you." Zhang Beidao ignored Su Xingyuan and continued, 10 families. There are 10 companies in total, and nearly 900 people have been selected for the talent plan. Do you still think it's less? After the words fell, Su Xingyuan was stunned on the spot. Surprise flashed across Chen Qi's eyes. There are 89 people in the family. This ratio is much higher than that of Wuhan University. The bases of the two are completely different. Now do you admit that you are a pig? Zhang Beidao sneered and looked at Su Xingyuan as if he were a fool. "Oh, I'm Chao. Old Zhang, don't hold me back." "I didn't hold you back." Zhang Ruya did not cooperate. "Okay, stop talking nonsense." Chen Qi had no choice but to pat Su Xingyuan, and after he sat down, he motioned for Zhang Ruya to continue. Wuhan University has the largest population and the highest proportion of geniuses from aristocratic families. What about the military? Ignoring the glares of Su Xingyuan and Zhang Beidao, Zhang Ruya smiled and talked about the number of people in the military. As one of the three parties, the military is in an awkward position. There are 3 major legions, 9 armies in total, and a total of 678 people have been selected into the talent plan. More than 600 people. Chen Qi raised his eyebrows and asked aloud, "There are so few people in the military. There should be quite a few people in the military." Su Xingyuan nodded. He also felt that this should be the case. Zhang Ruya shook her head and explained, "Although the military has a large number of people, But there is a problem. At this point, he paused, looked a little sad, and said in a deep voice, most people in the military come from poor backgrounds. It's very difficult to awaken advanced talents in such a family. Even if they awaken, their first choice will be to enter Wuhan University. This also leads to the fact that there are very few geniuses among the recruits recruited by the military. If you have B-level talent, you can be called a genius. The words fell. Chen Qi was silent. The number of people reported by Zhang Ria actually represented another meaning. Among the three parties, the aristocratic family has the highest proportion of geniuses, which is related to the environment in which they lived since childhood. Wuhan University is the first choice for geniuses who awaken their talents. Entering Wuhan University, you have resources, strong teachers, and you are safe. It is completely possible to wait until he is strong enough before embarking on the battlefield. The army is the most dangerous among the three parties. It has to face strange beasts all the time. If you are not careful, you may lose your life. This is not a good place to go. This also led to the fact that although the army had a large number of people, the number of geniuses selected for the talent program was much smaller than that of the Yamato family. More than 600 people. Too little. I've always been curious. Chen Qi's voice sounded, and he looked up at Zhang Ria and Zhang Beidao. He said aloud, among the three parties, many people from Wuhan University choose to graduate or enter the military early. Logically speaking, the relationship between the two parties should be very good. Why do people from Wuhan University also target people from the military? This question has been lingering in his mind. In his understanding, the three parties should be consistent in dealing with the outside world. But now it sounds like people from Wuhan University and people from aristocratic families are dissatisfied with these people who came from the military. Zhang Beidao changed into a comfortable position and placed the pillow behind her waist, revealing her slim waist. Then he said, no one said that people from Wuhan University are targeting people from the military. In other words, targeting people in the military is just a choice made by Lord Wu. And these people tend to come from well-established families. Master Wu is actually in a neutral position. The family has many geniuses, and they don't want to offend them. Although the military does not have many geniuses, it does have many strong ones. In the future, many students from Wuhan University will go to the military. Naturally, it won't offend either. Fool on the wall. Su Xingyuan's eyes flashed. I don't think I'm just a wallflower. You should say he's a good person. After Zhang Beidao said this, he couldn't help laughing. He is a good person. I have given the good guy card to the people at Wuhan University. After saying this, Zhang Beidao suddenly remembered something. He warned the two of them. Originally I thought you were stupid and didn't even know you were being deliberately provoked, so I didn't plan to tell you. But who made Xiao Zhang have a good relationship with you? Tomorrow, there will be an apprenticeship session. You need to pay attention to someone then. Who? Su Xingyuan was stunned and asked. Zhang Ruya on the side has already figured out what Zhang Beidao said. Although he can't rely on his family connections, he can still get some information. You must not choose an old man named Zhang Zesheng. Zhang Beidao's voice continued to sound. Remember, never choose. Unless you are confident that you can overpower everyone in Qinlongyuan, including people from aristocratic families and Wuhan University. Is it possible that the old man is very strong? Su Xingyuan looked stunned and asked excitedly. Among the people present, Zhang Ruya and Zhang Beidao knew a lot of news. As for Chen Qi, he went to find Zhang Zesheng as soon as he entered Qianlong courtyard and learned a lot of information. Among everyone present, Su Xingyuan, whose parents were both in the Wuzong realm, became the most ignorant person at this moment. Looking at Su Xingyuan's excited expression, Zhang Beidao said leisurely. Whether he is strong or not is another matter, but to be his student you must be very strong. Speaking of this, she said with a smile on her face, because in Qinlongyuan, most of the teachers have been beaten or offended by him, and many of the genius elders from the aristocratic families have also been beaten by him. So now you know what will happen if you are his student, right? After saying that, she looked full of curiosity. I really want to know which fool will become his student. I really want to see that person being beaten up by the people in Qianlong Yard and running away with his head in his arms. Ha 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 ha. Listening to Zhang Beidao's laughter, Zhang Ruya couldn't help laughing, while Su Xingyuan froze on the spot, and then looked even more excited. If you are not envied by others, you are a mediocre person. This is the kind of teacher you want. Chen Qi, who was on the side, looked at Zhang Ruya and Zhang Beidao, who were laughing with a complicated expression, and sighed in his heart, "Master, you misunderstood me." The qi and blood pills and alien beast crystal cores were completely consumed. Qi and blood increased again. But there is still a long way to go before the martial arts realm. Exhaling a breath of turbid air, the originally boiling blood gradually returned to calm and continued to flow in the body. Resources. In the living room, Chen Qi did not turn on the lights, only the sliver of light projected by the street lights outside. His eyes lit up, he muttered something, then closed his eyes again and began to practice the fighting spirit method. The war spirit method can absorb spiritual energy and strengthen the body. As Chen Qi's strength increased, he became more and more aware of the magical effects of the war spirit technique. The third level, the armor shadow appears. The stronger the strength, the higher the demands on the body. If you only improve your strength without strengthening your body, the strength you can exert will be limited. Chen Qi already had this feeling when he killed the martial soldier realm before. Along the way as a warrior, qi, blood, aura, martial arts, physique, and talent are all indispensable. As their strength continues to improve, their ability to unleash their talents will also increase. Unlock more talents and skills. Closed loop. On this road, if you leave anyone behind, you will not be able to reach the position of genius. While Chen Qi and others were practicing, in Zhang Zesheng's office, he was crouching in front of his desk, his silver hair was messy, and his expression seemed a little crazy. His eyes were full of light. On the paper in front of him, he kept writing lines of text. This is a study that he and his former friends speculated on. Talent, physique. This is the threshold that restricts everyone from moving to a higher level. Countless people who were once called geniuses all fell in front of these two mountains. Among all races, there was once a person whose body had mutated and possessed an extremely terrifying ability. Plunder. In just a few years, he went from being a warrior to a martial lord like riding a rocket. The sudden appearance of Wahou realm immediately attracted the attention of all races. The strong men all took action, and Zhang Zesheng also participated in the hunting operation. 3 arrows killed Wu Hu, that was the battle. After getting the body, he, his friends and a group of powerful people began to study it. Want to crack the plunder talent. As long as it can be cracked successfully, no one from all races can stop the progress of the human race. However, not long after the research began, my friend was suddenly intercepted and killed by a foreign race. Time passed quietly. In that battle, Zhang Zesheng killed Wahou with 3 arrows, but he was also injured. A strange energy entrenched in his body, like a tick piercing his body, constantly sucking the blood, spiritual energy, in his body. That war had ended decades ago, and during these decades, his research on plundering talents never stopped. Countless funds have been spent, but the research on plundering talents is still progressing extremely slowly. The death of his friend was a huge blow to him. In the room, there was only the sound of writing. In the dark room, Zhang Zesheng's eyes were unusually bright, as he was crouching at his desk. After washing up, Chen Qi opened the door. The wind blowing from the lakeside caressed his face, and the air contained traces of spiritual energy and water vapor. It's very refreshing when you put it on your face. Taking a deep breath, Chen Qi sighed. The spiritual energy contained in Qianlong courtyard was very rich. Compared to the army, the aura contained in the air here is at least twice as strong. Chen Qi, let's go. Zhang Ruya, Su Xingyuan and the lowly-faced Zhang Beidao were walking towards Chen Qi. Hey, have you decided who you want to be your teacher today? Zhang Ruya put her big hand on Chen Qi's shoulder and greeted him warmly. The two had known each other since the earliest time and had been on the battlefield together. It would not be an exaggeration to say that their lives were intertwined. Listening to Zhang Ruya's concerned tone, Chen Qi paused and was about to speak. Zhang Beidao glanced at Zhang Ruya and said, Xiao Zhang, use a little more force and be careful to beat Chen Qi to death. Whether he has the 6th level of a warrior with his small body is a question. Oh, Zhang Ruya seemed to be very afraid of Zhang Beidao. Maybe it's because siblings have this kind of relationship. I guess I have been beaten by Zhang Beidao a lot since I was a child. Su Xingyuan had a slight smile on his face. This caused Zhang Beidao to glance at him from time to time. The king of Bai is the king of Bai, even when walking, he carries his own Bai Qi. Chen Qi looked at Su Xingyuan and asked, Xingyuan, who will you ask to be your teacher later? Su Xingyuan raised his eyes and looked at the swaying branches not far away. Shaking his head slightly, his voice sounded, perhaps only Zhang Zesheng is qualified to be my teacher. Zhang Ruya was startled, grinning lightly. This thing has started to be installed again. Zhang Beidao, who didn't know much about Su Xingyuan, was completely different from Zhang Ruya. In her eyes, Su Xingyuan was a good-looking fool with mental problems. Choose Zhang Zesheng. Although you are a good A-level thunderbolt, you chose Zhang Zesheng and you were destined to be hammered 3 times a day. Beating from morning to night. Looking at Su Xingyuan standing quietly under the tree, looking up at the branches. Chen Qi really wanted to punch him. You really never miss a moment to show off, Hun Dan. In the square of Qinlongyuan. It was crowded, and people from aristocratic families, Wuhan University, and the military were all present. In front of the square, a row of tables are neatly arranged. On it, the names of various teachers were written, but now they are empty. The crowds in the square were distinct. In the team of the aristocratic family, several young people were gathering together and chatting casually. One of them looked at Lin Wei and asked with a smile, Lin Wei, I heard that you fought with people from the military yesterday. As soon as his words fell, he immediately attracted the attention of several people around him, all looking at a young man with an unruly expression. There was curiosity in his eyes. The man named Lin Wei chuckled, nodded, and said, have fun with him. How did it turn out? Someone asked curiously. Lin Wei raised his eyebrows slightly, paused, and said, 50-50. 50-50. I heard that person seems to be only a 7th level warrior. Can a 7th level warrior be as good as you, a warrior at the 8th level? Lin Wei's answer made several people around him look stunned, and then asked in surprise. Lin Wei shook his head, and the smile on his face gradually faded. That person is not weak. He has awakened the thunder talent suitable for attack. The 7th level warrior with the thunder talent is not weak. Hey, that's interesting. Lin Wei didn't make excuses, but gave honest evaluation. His talent was not the offensive talent like Su Xingyuan. It's the earth element that's suitable for defense. What's that person's name? One person asked curiously. The military force in Qianlong Courtyard was not strong. They had to eliminate the military people in Qianlong Courtyard first. This was their long-established plan. Su Xingyuan. Everyone silently wrote down the name. Since we want to eliminate people, why can't we start with this person named Su Xingyuan? Among the crowd, Chen Qi and others have also arrived. Looking around, there were obviously many fewer people on the military side. On the side, some geniuses from Wuhan University looked at the people in the military from time to time. The geniuses from the 3 parties could tell the difference at a glance. Everyone in the military had firm eyes, and there was a faint fighting spirit in their bodies. What you need in the military is such an indomitable will to fight. There are many people in Wuhan University, but many of them look a little immature and do not have the same fighting spirit as those in the military. Of course, there are also people with fighting intentions among them, and those people are the geniuses in Wuhan University. Among the 3 parties, the temperament of the people from the aristocratic family is the most eye-catching. With a faint smile on his face, he kept looking at the geniuses from Wuhan University and the military. Su Xingyuan's eyes rested on someone from the aristocratic family for a moment, and then moved away. Yesterday's battle with Lin Wei gave him a clearer understanding of this group of geniuses from the aristocratic family. While everyone was looking at each other, figures came from a distance. When this group of people appeared, the originally noisy square suddenly became quiet. Dozens of figures walked through the air. First, a person fell from the sky. In his 50s, he glanced at the people in the square. A trace of aura that seemed to be released inadvertently made everyone present tense up and their hearts beat faster. This breath comes and goes faster. Seeing that his goal was achieved, the man slowly sat down in his own seat. And on the table, 3 words were written. Yi Zhenghao. The specific strength is not specified. Chen Qi's eyes flashed. guessing his strength. Zhang Beidao explained softly. Yi Zhenghao, a strong man from the Fengyan Martial Arts University, the 6th level of martial arts. Born into poverty. Chen Qi nodded slightly and looked at Zhang Beidao with strange eyes. He really wanted to know who Zhang Beidao was. The two siblings Zhang Ruya have very mysterious backgrounds. I know a lot more information than others. A plain background will definitely not work. Shaking his head slightly, he put this matter aside for now. The things in front of him were the most important. Although he had already worshipped Zhang Zesheng as his teacher, it did not prevent him from getting to know the powerful teachers in Qianlong Academy. After Yi Zhenghao sat down, the other strong men also floated over. There was no aura permeating his body, and his calm eyes were not as sharp as Yi Zhenghao's, but rather gentle. In a short period of time, almost all the teachers had arrived. In the field, there was only one table left which was still empty. Zhang Zesheng. It's strange, isn't that old man Zhang Zesheng not planning to accept students? Zhang Beidao looked around suspiciously, but did not find Zhang Zesheng. I also want to see which unlucky people become his disciples. Zhang Ruya looked around and then looked away. Su Xingyuan's eyes glanced at Lin Wei's group from time to time, and there was a cold look in his eyes. The situation of the three parties has become clear, and he is also clear about the cause of yesterday's provocation. It seems that Lin Wei and others treat themselves as soft persimmons. Listening to Zhang Beidao's gloating tone, Chen Qi's eyes twitched and a smile appeared on his lips. Unlucky guy. I'm afraid that's not necessarily the case. Few minutes. A figure came slowly from a distance. The elegant aura on his body fell into the eyes of everyone in the square, making many geniuses waiting here look puzzled. Who is this old man? Someone asked doubtfully, looking at Zhang Zesheng walking from a distance. I don't know, maybe it's the teacher in charge of logistics. Zhang Zesheng's expression was indifferent, completely different from the group of strong men who appeared before. This also led to many people mistakenly thinking that Zhang Zesheng was a teacher in logistics. Different from the discussions among people in Wuhan University and the military, many people in the family team changed their faces slightly when they saw Zhang Zesheng appear. Zhang Zesheng is actually here. Is it possible that he will accept students this time? One person narrowed his eyes and said softly, how could he not come with his temper? One person sneered, he has offended so many people in the past few decades. But he's still living well. HMPH. Another person snorted coldly. That's just because he is still worth living, otherwise he would have been sent to the battlefield of all races more than 10 years ago. Quote. After saying that, he glanced at the people around him and said playfully, among the people present, how many of them have not been robbed by him? How many resources did he steal and how much money did he spend? He can't die. Once he dies, all the investment over the past few decades will be in vain. I want to see who will become his disciple this time. Hearing this, everyone smiled playfully. Zhang Zesheng's evaluation among the aristocratic family is extremely poor. Zhang Zesheng was once the top archer in the country, and his S-level talent overwhelmed everyone among archer talents. 3 arrows killed the alien Wahou realm. When news of such achievements came out, he was immediately praised as the god of archery by all warriors who had awakened their archer talents. The name of the god of arrows was in the limelight for a time. But not long after, news came out again that he was injured. Countless strong men took action, but they could only shake their heads. At this point, Zhang Zesheng's limelight quickly dissipated. Just a few decades later, those who still know Zhang Zesheng today are not only his friends, but also his enemies. Without any aura of a strong man on his body, Zhang Zesheng came slowly, with a faint smile on his face. The crowd parted automatically, and Zhang Zesheng walked slowly past with a calm expression. When he walked in front of the group of people from the aristocratic family, his steps slowed down slightly, and his slightly cloudy eyes looked at the people who had spoken before. He said lightly, within 3 days, let your family send resources worth 10,000 Longyuan points. After saying that, he ignored the others and moved forward. After the words fell, the faces of several people changed. Looking at the back of Zhang Zesheng walking slowly forward, no one dared to say a word, no. Not to mention them, even the powerful men of the same generation as Zhang Zesheng in the family behind them did not dare to say no. All this is just because the person who said this is Zhang Zesheng. These 3 words are deterrents. There was once a genius who said, "Old man," in front of Zhang Zesheng. One of his legs was abruptly broken by the elder behind him. In addition, Zhang Zesheng will be compensated with a sum of resources. Chen Qi and 4 other people were in the crowd, and the scene just now fell in the eyes of a few people, including what Zhang Zesheng said. Su Xingyuan's eyes flashed, and his tone was filled with envy. This old man is really handsome. Zhang Ruya looked at Zhang Zesheng's back with longing. This is the god of arrows Zhang Zesheng. Zhang Beidao's eyes flashed, and it had to be said that Zhang Zesheng seemed completely different from other strong men. Zhang Zesheng looks elegant and easygoing, like a scholar. But only those who know him well will know what kind of Zhang Zesheng is hidden under such a mask. Chen Qi had a smile on his lips. This old man is indeed handsome. Finally waited until Zhang Zesheng appeared. After Zhang Zesheng sat down, Yi Zhenghao said angrily, "You are in the martial arts realm after all. What's the point of blackmailing a few children?" "I'm happy to," Zhang Zesheng replied with a smile, turned around and chatted with a strong woman beside him. Seeing this, Yi Zhenghao shook his head helplessly. Although Zhang Zesheng is only in the martial spirit realm now, he really doesn't dare to say anything to Zhang Zesheng. After all, he didn't have the record of killing Wu Hu by leapfrogging over the ranks with the strength of the king of martial arts. Even though Zhang Zesheng's strength is constantly declining, no one dares to do anything to him. The confidence in all this is due to Zhang Zesheng's decades of research. No one knows whether he has researched anything. No more unnecessary words, now let's choose our respective teachers. As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Zhenghao raised his hand, and a trace of power representing his talent suddenly appeared on the sign on the table that originally only had his name written on it. A tornado that was 100 times smaller was spinning continuously on the table. Immediately afterwards, the other strong men raised their hands one after another, leaving their respective innate powers on their previous signs. In front of Yi Zhenghao was a tornado, and in front of a strong female figure beside him, a miniature waterfall like a falling galaxy was falling continuously. This scene made many people present wide-eyed. This is the first time for many people to see such a strong man take action. Chen Qi looked at them one by one. It was also the first time for him to see such a scene. Once you reach the martial spirit realm, you can actually manifest your innate power. Another new knowledge point. His eyes kept moving, in front of Zhang Zesheng. Different from the innate power revealed in front of everyone, the innate power revealed by Zhang Zesheng was only one arrow. An arrow made entirely of qi, blood and spiritual energy. The arrow body is flowing with light, and the arrowhead is flashing with cold light. This is the only S-level archer talent in the game. The light lingers around the arrow body, like a carefully carved arrow. There is no wind element that can make people feel the terrifying power just by looking at it, like in front of Yi Zhenghao. There are no beautiful scenes like those created by those with strong water element talents. A simple arrow shone slightly in front of the 3 characters of Zhang Zesheng. Many people noticed the arrow in front of Zhang Zesheng. Someone's eyes lit up and they raised their feet and moved forward. From Zhang Zesheng's appearance to now, everything seems to tell everyone that he is different from others. The other strong men came through the air. But when he arrived at Zhang Zesheng's place, he came slowly like an ordinary old man. When he was misunderstood as a logistics teacher, Zhang Zesheng blackmailed the children of the aristocratic family with a smile in front of everyone. But now, it is different from the innate power displayed by other strong men, it is constructed from a simple arrow. Someone came forward and wanted to become a disciple of Zhang Zesheng. But as soon as he stepped forward, Zhang Zesheng waved his hand, indicating to choose someone else. After being rejected as a disciple, the man nodded slightly and then walked towards other strong men. People kept coming forward, but Zhang Zesheng seemed to look down on everyone, after rejecting dozens of people in a row. The number of people who dared to step forward suddenly decreased. "Did you see it?" Zhang Beidao said with a smile. "It is not easy to ask Mr. Zhang Zesheng to be your teacher. Although his realm has fallen, his vision is not low." Su Xingyuan's eyes flashed. Looking at Zhang Zesheng sitting quietly at the table, few people came forward at this moment. After thinking for a while, he looked at Zhang Beidao and asked, "What does this old man require when he accepts students? Do you really want to take this old man as your teacher?" Zhang Ruya and Zhang Beidao looked at Su Xingyuan in surprise. "Try it." Su Xingyuan raised his eyebrows slightly, raised the corners of his mouth slightly, turned to look at Zhang Zesheng, and said, "The old man has offended too many people, but this is not a skill. If you offend someone, you are still alive and well. No one dares to attack him. This is the skill." Su Xingyuan's words fell on the ears of Zhang Beidao and Zhang Ruya, and they were stunned. There seems to be nothing wrong with Su Xingyuan's words. But that's just an old man. What does it have to do with you? Those people couldn't deal with the old man, could it be that they can't deal with you? Zhang Ruya hesitated for a moment and persuaded, "Xingyuan, you have to think about it. Those people don't dare to take action against the old man. That's because the old man is very powerful, but you are different." Having said this, he paused, glanced at the crowd of aristocratic families in the square, and said, "There are many geniuses in Qianlong Yard, too many A levels, and quite a few S levels." Zhang Beidao nodded in agreement. Su Xingyuan's talent is A-level thunder, Zhang Zesheng is actually not a good choice. After listening to the two people's words, Su Xingyuan shook his head slightly, "I still want to try." After speaking, "Lift your feet forward." "Thank you, teacher." Another person was rejected, so he bowed and said, then turned and walked towards the other teachers. Zhang Zesheng's eyes were calm and his expression remained calm. Su Xingyuan stood in front of Zhang Zesheng and said with a smile, "Teacher Zhang, do you have any conditions for accepting students?" Looking at Su Xingyuan in front of him, Zhang Zesheng smiled, "Yes. Can withstand beatings." Su Xingyuan's expression remained unchanged. He raised his hand, and a bolt of thunder lingered in the air, disappearing in the blink of an eye. It is unrealistic for him who is in the warrior realm to control the power of thunder like he is in the martial spirit realm. You have to think about it carefully. Although your A-level thunder talent is good, you may not be close to being able to withstand beatings. Think about it. Su Xingyuan looked excited. He doesn't care about the aristocratic family and Wuhan University's targeting. Zhang Zesheng glanced at Chen Qi in the crowd, nodded with a smile, and said in a gentle voice, "Then you will become my student." As this done, Su Xingyuan was a little stunned. He thought he would be rejected, but he didn't expect to succeed so easily. "Stand aside for now." "Okay." Someone became a disciple of Zhang Zesheng. Almost everyone's eyes fell on Su Xingyuan. From the selection of teachers to now, Su Xingyuan is the first student accepted by Zhang Zesheng. Among the people from the aristocratic family, Lin Wei's eyes flashed and he said with a sneer, "I didn't expect that Su Xingyuan would dare to choose Zhang Zesheng as his teacher." People around also saw Su Xingyuan standing next to Zhang Zesheng, and said with a smile, "Lin Wei, it seems that they don't take you seriously at all. Can you do it? If not, I will take action." "Ha!" Lin Wei smiled disdainfully and said lightly, "I will let him remember me next time." No one among Zhang Beidao, Zhang Ruya and Chen Qi thought that Su Xingyuan could succeed as a disciple. After all, Zhang Ruya and Zhang Beidao had made it very clear what the fate of Zhang Zesheng's students would be. "Su Xingyuan knows Mr. Zhang Zesheng?" Zhang Beidao asked with wide eyes and confusion. Zhang Ruya shook her head. "Where did Su Xingyuan meet Zhang Zesheng?" Chen Qi stood aside, and he saw all Zhang Zesheng's eyes just now. Zhang Zesheng accepted Su Xingyuan, he may have guessed some reasons. Standing next to Zhang Zesheng, Su Xingyuan glanced at Lin Wei and others, and raised the corner of his mouth slightly. Lin Wei's previous provocation was actually to give himself a warning. But the more this happens, the less Su Xingyuan will give in. Want to beat yourself up in this way? It's just nonsense. You two aren't going to choose a teacher. Chen Qi shook his head slightly in his mind, and then looked at the two people beside him. Zhang Ruya and Zhang Beidao paused for a moment, then walked towards the teacher they had chosen. Zhang Ruya chose a teacher who was a strong man in the martial king realm. Although his talent did not match his enhanced strength, when his strength reached the level of the martial king realm, it no longer mattered whether the talent matched his strength. At this point, it is no longer limited to the level of talent, but goes one step further. Zhang Beidao chose a teacher who was also talented in the ice element. Martial spirit realm. The two of them had already chosen a teacher. Chen Qi looked around and saw that there were very few people who had not yet chosen a teacher. The genius of the family chose to finish first. The talents of Wuhan University are also very fast in their selection. The military was a little slower. Among the remaining geniuses, they are all from the military and Wuhan University. Chen Qi no longer delayed and moved forward. His eyes did not look elsewhere, but went straight towards Zhang Zesheng. Seeing Chen Qi approaching, Su Xingyuan raised the corner of his mouth. Good boy, with good vision. I just don't know if the teacher will reject Chen Qi, or I can say a few nice words to him later. These are my close friends and relatives. I saw Chen Qi walking towards Zhang Zesheng. The eyes of the people from the aristocratic family all fell on Chen Qi. Many people looked like they were watching a good show. They are not afraid that someone will choose Zhang Zesheng, but they want to see who will choose Zhang Zesheng. There is Su Xingyuan in the front and Chen Qi in the back. This is a complete disregard for this group of people. Zhang Beidao turned his eyes and looked at the direction Chen Qi was walking in. He murmured, Su Xingyuan is a big fool. Could it be that Chen Qi is also a big fool? I have to tell Xiao Zhang to stay away from these two fools. Through the crowd, Chen Qi came to Zhang Zesheng. He bowed slightly and called with a smile, Master. Stand aside for a while, and then come with me when it's over. Zhang Zesheng smiled gently and looked at Chen Qi without any surprise. Chen Qi nodded slightly and stood aside. Su Xingyuan was stunned. What's going on? How come Chen Qi became a disciple faster than himself? No, Chen Qidu hasn't even become a disciple yet, so he just calls him master. Is that what he wants? He didn't expect to understand that Chen Qi's apprenticeship seemed to be a little different from him. This scene fell in the eyes of other people. Many people who had been rejected before widened their eyes and looked at Chen Qi with strange eyes. Chen Qi's painting style seems to be completely different from theirs. The two of them stood next to Zhang Zesheng, looking very eye-catching. Look up. Behind the strong men present, stood the accepted students. Among the geniuses and teachers in Qianlong Yuan, a strong man has to take care of 50 students. The students behind the group of strong men were densely packed. On the other hand, there were only two people beside Zhang Zesheng, Chen Qi and Su Xingyuan. In comparison, the situation seems a bit embarrassing. There are not many geniuses in the square who have not yet chosen a teacher. Some people looked at Chen Qi and the other two, and then at the other strong men. After hesitation, I chose other teachers. And some people walked towards Zhang Zesheng. After accepting Su Xingyuan and Chen Qi, Zhang Zesheng did not want to stay longer and accepted them one by one. In a short period of time, the team that originally consisted of Chen Qi and Su Xingyuan grew to over 30 people. Let's go. Zhang Zesheng stood up and glanced at everyone in front of him, with a gentle smile on his face. Looking at Zhang Zesheng's leaving figure, Yi Zhenghao murmured, why did it become like this? The tone was full of emotion. Su Zheng, whose strength has reached the 9th level of martial arts, although he has silver hair and a few traces of time left on his face, he can still see his former appearance. Time never defeats beauty. Listening to Yi Zhenghao's emotional tone, Su Zheng stared at Zhang Zesheng's leaving back with a nostalgic look, and a touch of distress in his eyes. He said softly, perhaps he has changed since the moment he suddenly passed away. Over the years, he has almost lost touch with everything he once had. Those people pushed him too hard. Now he wants to monopolize power and wants to abandon everything in the past. At the end, Su Zheng's tone was already cold. Yi Zhenghao paused and said in a voice that only two people could hear, the road went astray. After saying that, he shook his head slightly, then turned and left. Su Zheng stood there. Zhang Zesheng's figure had long since disappeared from his sight. She sighed softly, then turned to the students she accepted this time and nodded slightly, let's go. In a short period of time, the square was deserted. The breeze blows and takes away the dust. Chen Qi, do you know the teacher? The title in Su Xingyuan's mouth was different from that of Chen Qi. One is called teacher and the other is called master. Su Xingyuan came to his senses at this moment and suddenly realized something was wrong. Chen Qi's previous expression showed that he knew Zhang Zesheng. But how did Chen Qi know Zhang Zesheng? Chen Qi smiled and said, we know him. Su Xingyuan. At this moment, Chen Qi no longer concealed anything, and directly revealed that he had become a disciple of Zhang Zesheng. Before this, no one except Shang Han and Hu Zhaofeng knew about this matter. After listening to Chen Qi's explanation, Su Xingyuan was completely stunned. He never expected that Chen Qi was Zhang Zesheng's first student. Unfortunately, I wanted to say a few good words to Chen Qi in front of Zhang Zesheng. I am the one who needs to be said well. After being stunned for a moment, Su Xingyuan held Chen Qi in his arms and said through gritted teeth, "Then why didn't you talk to me before? Maid, won't you say something nice in front of the teacher? You are such an animal, you." Chen Qi laughed. He didn't know whether Zhang Zesheng's acceptance of Su Xingyuan had anything to do with him. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. There are classrooms in Qinlongyuan that belong to each teacher. More than 30 people sat down, with Chen Qi and Su Xingyuan sitting at the front. Zhang Zesheng looked tired, but still with a gentle smile, he said, "Since you have chosen me to be your teacher, then I need to tell you something. Being my student will be very hard, very hard." Zhang Zesheng stretched out a finger and scanned the 30 people in front of him. Seeing that no one spoke, he continued to speak. "You will be suppressed by many people. I have offended many people and they dare not deal with me, so you will be the target of their suppression. I have only one request here," Zhang Zesheng said in a serious tone. "My students, I don't care about your talent or strength, but there is one thing you must possess." Chen Qi and Su Xingyuan looked at each other and already guessed what Zhang Zesheng said they must have. "Your spine cannot be bent. Even if you lose and are disabled, I can teach you martial arts, fighting skills, and I can also cure you, but there is one thing. You have to stand up straight. If you want to become a strong person, you must have the momentum to move forward. Don't be afraid if they suppress you. I will stand behind you. If you lose, I will fight back next time. Remember, my students, Zhang Zesheng, have no weak points." After the words fell, some people in the crowd moved slightly, opened their mouths, and wanted to say something. "If you fart, just let it go, just like a girl." Zhang Zesheng's eyes fell on the man, with a stern tone in his tone. "Teacher, what should we do if a high-level genius suppresses us?" Zhang Zesheng snorted coldly. The martial spirit realm's aura rose up, and said lightly, "Then I will kill the people behind him." As soon as the words fell, everyone present felt their hearts tremble. Zhang Zesheng's words gave them an incomparable sense of security. The resources for cultivation will be delivered in a few days. Now let's start asking questions about martial arts. Get out of the classroom. Chen Qi and Su Xingyuan smiled and nodded to the rest of the people and said goodbye. Leave each other. Chen Qi, Xingyuan, Zhang Ruya's voice sounded. The two turned around, and Zhang Ruya strode over. "I didn't expect you two to actually choose Zhang Zesheng as your teacher." Chen Qi shrugged, smiled, and said nothing. Su Xingyuan stood sideways, with a straight body. The two of them had known Su Xingyuan for a long time. Seeing this look, the two knew that Su Xingyuan was starting again. The three of them chatted and walked towards the dormitory. Not far away, several figures leaned to the side. Seeing Chen Qi and the others appeared, their expressions changed slightly, and then they walked towards the three of them. Lin Wei. Su Xingyuan looked at Lin Wei, who was walking at the front of the group, and narrowed his eyes slightly. Chen Qi and Zhang Ruya listened to Su Xingyuan's name and followed his gaze. It fell on Lin Wei. Stopping, Lin Wei and the people behind him looked at Chen Qi and Zhang Ruya with disdain in their eyes. It finally fell on Su Xingyuan. A voice sounded, "I didn't have all the fun yesterday. Are you going to try again today?" The looks from several people made Chen Qi and Zhang Ruya very unhappy. Su Xingyuan looked at Lin Wei and the others in front of him with the same gaze. He said expressionlessly, "Then are you ready to be knocked down by me?" Lin Wei chuckled, raised his eyebrows, and said proudly, "How about giving it a try?" After saying that, without waiting for Su Xingyuan to speak, he continued, "The East Square Arena. You get ready, I'll wait for you." After saying that, he turned around and left. Su Xingyuan's eyes flashed with thunder, and he looked at Lin Wei and others leaving, and said calmly, "Then I will satisfy you." Chen Qi stood beside Su Xingyuan, looking at Lin Wei and others leaving. His eyes narrowed slightly. Is the provocation from the family coming so soon? If you want to start suppressing Su Xingyuan, I'm afraid you will be disappointed. Someone is in the ring. The news quickly spread throughout Qinlongyuan. I was just admitted to the hospital yesterday, and someone came to the ring today. Chen Qi, Zhang Ruya and Su Xingyuan ignored the strange looks around them and walked step by step towards the east ring. Qinlongyuan is divided into several areas. The first one is the residential area where Chen Qi and others live. Hands-on is prohibited here. The second is the area where teachers live, which is also not allowed here. In fact, no one would be stupid enough to take action here. The third teaching area is where every teacher and geniuses in Qianlong Academy study. The fourth training area, the fifth logistics area, and the sixth arena area. Senior brother Chen Qi, senior brother Xingyuan. Many people heard the news and came one after another. This group of people are all geniuses who just became disciples of Zhang Zi today. Although no one said anything about the senior brothers, everyone had already assumed that the two were senior brothers through Zhang Zesheng's attitude towards the two. But who is older and who is younger? I don't know. No one cares about this either. All the eagerness in everyone's eyes fell on Chen Qi and Su Xingyuan's eyes. Su Xingyuan looked indifferent and said calmly, "What are you doing here?" "It's just a chicken and a dog." Lu Cheng's tone was filled with anger and he spoke urgently. "Senior brother Xingyuan, don't agree to their challenge. Those people just want to suppress you." Everyone spoke out one after another. Su Xingyuan's eyes flashed and he smiled brightly. "Then it depends on who suppresses whom. After saying that, don't stop anymore and lift your feet forward." Chen Qi's eyes were calm and he didn't speak. Although they already knew that this group of people would suppress them, this was too fast. Just after the apprenticeship was completed, Lin Wei and the others couldn't wait. The news that Su Xingyuan was going to compete with Lin Wei spread throughout the Qianlong Academy and also reached the ears of every teacher. After Yi Zhenghao finished listening, he didn't even raise his eyes, nodded slightly, and continued to close his eyes and concentrate. "Teacher Su, do you want to go and have a look?" A teacher in the martial arts realm looked at Su Zheng and asked softly. Su Zheng lowered his eyes, his eyelashes trembled slightly, and his voice sounded, "It's just a child's play." "Haha, let me go and take a look." After the teacher left, Su Zheng raised his head, his eyes seemed to transcend time and space, and whispered softly, "They are really afraid of you." After saying that, he slowly closed his eyes. A trace of spiritual energy entered the body, and a hint of powerful aura filled the air. She is only one step away from the martial king realm. It was different from the reactions of Su Zheng, Yi Zhenghao and others. When Zhang Zesheng heard Su Xingyuan and Lin Wei enter the ring, he just nodded slightly, and then looked at the students in front of him. Said slowly, "Tell Chen Qi and Su Xingyuan to let go and fight. As long as you don't kill him." "Ah." The student who came to tell Zhang Zesheng the news looked confused. He thought the teacher would show up. "In the end, you said let it go and fight, as long as you can't be killed." He nodded, turned around and left, running towards the east. Around the arena, many geniuses from aristocratic families came to the arena to watch when they heard that Lin Wei was going to enter the arena with Zhang Zesheng's new student. At this moment, one person in the crowd glanced around. Many geniuses from Wuhan University and the military were attracted by this news. "Lin Wei, this guy brought Su Xingyuan for surgery." There was a smile in his tone. The outcome of the battle between these two people seemed to have been decided in words. The people around him smiled after listening to what he said. Lin Wei had made a move with Su Xingyuan before. Didn't take advantage. Although Su Xingyuan is only at the 7th level of a warrior, his awakened talent is thunder suitable for attacking. Lin Wei's talent is the earth element. There are inherent differences in the methods of attack between the two. From this point we can see that talent has a great influence on strength. Among them, Lin Wei can only be said to be of average strength. A true genius wouldn't bother taking action against Su Xingyuan, who was only a 7th level warrior. Those people were too arrogant. The talents of the 7th level warrior plus A-level thunder were not enough to attract their attention. And Lin Wei's attack this time was just sent out by them as a test. As long as Zhang Zesheng doesn't take action, they will have the confidence to sweep away Zhang Zesheng's students one by one. There are no strong students accepted by Zhang Zesheng's disciples this year. Lin Wei alone is probably enough to sweep them all. One person chuckled and glanced at the students from Zhang Zesheng's sect. As far as I know, the strongest member of Zhang Zesheng's sect this time is Su Xingyuan. Quote, A-level Thunder's talent is actually not weak anymore, but it's a pity that he chose the wrong team. Ha ha ha, watch a show, watch a show. Everyone smiled. Chen Qi, Su Xingyuan and Zhang Ruya were followed by a group of people. Su Xingyuan looked calm. He also saw clearly that Lin Wei wanted to scare the monkeys. And he is the chicken in Lin Wei's eyes. There was no warrior aura about Chen Qi, he was just like a theatergoer. On the contrary, when Zhang Ruya's tall figure appeared around the ring, she immediately attracted a lot of eyes. Lin Wei bent his legs slightly, then jumped up and appeared on the ring. Glancing around, his eyes fell on Su Xingyuan in front of the arena he had just reached. As for Chen Qi, Zhang Ruya and the rest of them, they were not taken seriously by him. In his opinion, as long as Su Xingyuan, a 7th-level martial artist with thunderous talent, is defeated by him, Chen Qi and his group of local chickens and dogs will no longer have any power to resist. When the time comes, students under Zhang Zesheng's disciples will defect one by one. His purpose was achieved. Although Zhang Zesheng's realm has now fallen to the martial spirit realm, many people still have a fear of Zhang Zesheng in the eyes of many people. What they have to do is to continue to force Zhang Zesheng bit by bit. When he couldn't bear it anymore and took action, everything would fall into place. Su Xingyuan, let's fight. Lin Wei stared at Su Xingyuan under the ring, hooked his fingers at him, raised the corners of his mouth slightly, and looked indifferent. Be careful, Xingyuan. Be careful, senior brother Xingyuan. Zhang Ruya and the rest of the people spoke out one after another. Su Xingyuan smiled and nodded, his eyes colliding with Chen Qi's. Chen Qi said with a grin. Xingyuan, master said, if you lose, he will beat you when you get back. Su Xingyuan's expression changed slightly and he smiled brilliantly. You can see if I beat him or not. That's it. After the words fell, he raised his eyes and looked at Lin Wei on the ring. The originally calm eyes suddenly became fierce at this moment. The spear was in his hand, and there was a flash of thunder in his eyes. Click! A bolt of thunder shot out. Su Xingyuan turned into a stream of light and appeared on the ring. Their eyes collided. Do you want to find a referee? Lin Wei slowly pulled out his sword and said casually with the sword glimmering coldly. What nonsense! Thunder shot out from the tip of the spear, leaving small traces on the ring. Su Xingyuan didn't want Lin Wei to talk nonsense. These people are really sanctimonious. Ha! Lin Wei sneered, gripped the sword fiercely, and then took a step forward, the sword glowing. Han Sheng said, let me see if your bones are so hard. Buzz! Thunder bloomed and spread to the entire gun body. Su Xingyuan calmly thrust out his spear and thunder struck out. The sword light poured out. It cut through the air and made a hissing sound. His strength has reached the 8th level of warrior realm and his speed is extremely fast. Taking one step forward, the sword light was in front of Su Xingyuan in the next instant. The sword flashed and went straight towards Su Xingyuan's chest. Su Xingyuan showed no fear on his face, and the thunder blasted out from his spear, directly piercing Lin Wei's chest. Lin Wei's eyes were slightly focused, and the sharp blade of the sword in his hand reflected a pair of calm eyes. The thunder was extremely fast, Lin Wei's body moved slightly, and the thunder flew out by grazing his shoulder. The spear pierced the air, like a snake coming out of its hole, and wisps of thunder shot out, heading straight for Lin Wei's chest. Clang! The sword changed slightly in Lin Wei's hand, and a crisp sound sounded. The sword and the tip of the gun collided, and sparks spattered. The tip of the spear shifted slightly, and a sharp look flashed in Su Xingyuan's eyes. The hand holding the spear exerted slight force, and then the waist exerted force fiercely. The tip of the spear, which had been deflected, suddenly stopped and then slashed towards Lin Wei. Like a sharp blade, if Lin Wei is hit by this gun, he will not die but will be seriously injured. In his eyes, the tip of the spear swept across, carrying a roaring wind. Lin Wei snorted coldly and slammed one hand on the barrel of the gun. Bang! The tip of the spear hit the ring directly. The gravel flew away and shot towards the people around the ring like bullets. Everyone hurriedly took action to resist. Lin Wei snorted coldly, the energy and blood in his body surged, and the earth elements were mobilized to build an earth wall in front of him. The offensive was resolved by Lin Wei with one move, and Su Xingyuan's eyes flashed. Qi and blood surged in the body, and traces of lightning lingered on the gun body. Then the arm suddenly exerted force, and the long gun body that was smashed into the ring suddenly bent. With a huge rebound force, the spear bounced up at a speed that was almost too fast for people to react, and then stabbed towards Lin Wei in front of him. The dull sound of breaking through the air echoed, accompanied by the dazzling power of thunder. Lin Wei's pupils shrank suddenly, so fast. The earth element became more and more intense, and the earth wall in front of him suddenly thickened. Su Xingyuan is not a weakling. He is not a genius who grew up in a greenhouse like the aristocratic family or Wuhan University. Although he was in the army, he had not experienced hundreds of battles, but he had also emerged from death. Fighting spirit rose up all over his body, Su Xingyuan's hair flew, and thunder lingered around his body. Bang! The thickened earth wall was instantly shattered by the bombardment of the spear point. The spear moves forward inexorably. Like a thunder dragon roaring, Lin Wei will be swallowed up in the next second. The moment the earthen wall collapsed, Lin Wei felt a sense of danger in his heart and his heart was pounding. The spear was extremely fast, and as soon as the sword was in front of him, the tip of the spear had already struck the blade. Clang! The sound of gold and iron clashing sounded, and the next second, Lin Wei's body flew backwards uncontrollably. Lin Wei was horrified. Su Xingyuan's burst of power at this moment was stronger than what he had before. If it hadn't been for the sword in his hand that blocked the shot, Lin Wei would have been seriously injured. This scene fell into the eyes of the spectators around the ring. Many people's expressions changed slightly. The eyes that looked at Su Xingyuan were full of surprise. It is indeed a thunder talent suitable for attacking. With the strength of the 7th level warrior, Lin Wei, who was at the 8th level warrior, could be blasted away head-on. Thunder's talent is indeed strong enough. Among the group of geniuses from the family, several people had surprise in their eyes. He said with a sigh, "The 7th level warrior can challenge the 8th level warrior head-on. Su Xingyuan is not a weakling." The moment the spear was shot away, he could think of using his strength to fight back. Both of them are A-level talents. Lin Wei was careless. Listening to everyone's discussion, some people snorted coldly, looking at Su Xingyuan with a hint of coldness in their eyes. It doesn't matter if it's suitable for attacking. No one here is a genius. If you want to fight beyond the level, Su Xingyuan is still far behind. Unless he is an S-level thunder talent. Chen Qi, Zhang Ruya and everyone behind them. He stared closely at the two people on the ring. When they saw Lin Wei being blown away by Su Xingyuan's shot, everyone's expressions were full of excitement. Su Xingyuan is just a 7th level warrior. There are no weaklings in Qinlongyuan. Geniuses who can fight at higher levels outside may not be able to win at the same level when they come here. Chen Qi and Zhang Ruya looked at the two people in the ring quietly. The scene of Lin Wei being blown away fell into the eyes of the two of them, and there was no particular reaction. Su Xingyuan himself is not a weak person. Coupled with the blessing of thunder talent, his strength is not weaker than Lin Wei. Xiao Zhang. Zhang Beidao moved his long legs and came around the ring. How could this idiot fight with Lin Wei? Zhang Beidao stared at the ring with his big eyes. At this moment, Lin Wei was shot away. None of them spoke. In the arena, Lin Wei was blown away by a gunshot, and he was in the air with nowhere to rely on. A cold look flashed across Su Xingyuan's eyes, and he took a step forward. The spear was turned in his hand, and in an instant, countless gun shadows shrouded Lin Wei. Thunder cloud piercing gun. The lightning was dazzling, and the cold tip of the spear flashed with cold light. Su Xingyuan. Lin Wei's eyes were full of horror and he roared angrily. The earth element was crazily constructed in front of him, resisting Su Xingyuan's shot. So fast, someone exclaimed. The moment Lin Wei was blasted out, Su Xingyuan had already made a move. At this moment, the spear moved forward fiercely, and the earth wall built by the earth element continued to collapse. As the thunder burst out, countless thunder powers turned into a sheet of gunlight and enveloped Lin Wei. Ha! Su Xingyuan snorted coldly, with a cold expression and a cold light in his eyes. The murderous intention suddenly arises. The overwhelming gun shadows shrouded Lin Wei in the air. Throat, chest, limbs. This shot was like trying to dismember Lin Wei alive. Lin Wei's eyes were full of horror, and the countless gun shadows in front of him made him feel as if he was in a big net made of gun shadows. No matter which direction it goes in, it is covered by the shadow of the gun. The cage trapped him tightly. I can't lose. Lin Wei's eyes were horrified, and a strong desire to survive arose in his heart. Within the body, qi and blood are boiling, and spiritual energy is being mobilized. The earth elements gathered crazily at this moment. In the blink of an eye, his body was covered by the earth element. Boom! The gun shadow fell. This big net suddenly tightened at this moment. Lin Wei could only watch helplessly as this big net came over him. The next second, the armor covered with earth elements shattered like glass and exploded. Help me! Lin Wei completely felt the breath of death at this moment. At this moment, he could no longer control the fear in his heart and shouted. At this moment, the tip of the spear is in front of your eyes, and it will be at your throat in the next second. The strong wind cut open his skin, and traces of blood seeped out. Chen Qi's eyes narrowed, and his eyes instantly locked onto a person in the crowd of aristocratic families. The man was about to move, and a sharp gaze locked on him instantly. Looking up, Chen Qi's calm eyes flashed with a cold look. As long as that person dares to move, Chen Qi's revenge will come. Don't move. If you move, you will be in danger. Although Chen Qi's eyes were calm, the person who saw Chen Qi's eyes couldn't help but feel shocked. He felt uneasy in Chen Qi's body. His heart was pounding as if he was being targeted by a powerful alien beast. Several auras suddenly rose up around him. In an instant, he pressed against Chen Qi. On the ring, Su Xingyuan remained unmoved. The moment Lin Wei spoke out, the tip of the spear was already at his throat. Buzz! The tip of the gun stopped 1 centimeter away from Lin Wei's throat. Lin Wei's scalp was numb and he was horrified. As soon as his eyes moved, the tip of the gun penetrated his shoulder. Then with a shock, an arm flew out. Silence all around. Lin Wei lost. He was defeated by Su Xingyuan, a disciple of Zhang Zesheng. A warrior at the 7th level is better than a warrior at the 8th level. The people watching around the ring looked at Su Xingyuan on the stage in shock. There was a look of disbelief in his eyes. There are no weaklings in Qinlongyuan. They are all geniuses, and no one will obey anyone else. There is only one way to convince people. Beat. If you are strong enough, you can make everyone shut up. The arm flew out, and someone wanted to make a move, but before his body could move, a bolt of thunder burst out. The arm that flew out instantly shattered into pieces. Seeing this scene, the expressions of everyone in the aristocratic family crowd changed. Su Xingyuan's actions undoubtedly told everyone present. Lin Wei has been defeated. They're just chickens and dogs. Lin Wei's arm was cut off, his face was pale, and his expression was full of despair. If a warrior loses an arm along the way, he can already declare that the martial arts path is cut off. From now on, there will be no possibility of further progress. Although Lin Wei has an A-level earth element talent, his strength has now reached the 8th level of a warrior. But losing an arm meant that his martial arts path was cut off from this moment on. Unless someone strong takes action to restore it. Although there is a strong man behind Lin Wei, it is difficult for him to spend his energy to restore his broken arm. The broken arm was shattered in the air, and Lin Wei hit the ring with a bang. His face was pale, his eyes were unparalleled, and he was full of confusion. Su Xingyuan didn't even look at Lin Wei, his faint eyes scanned the people around the ring. He was full of fighting spirit. The pressure is so severe that some people only feel difficulty breathing. Looking at Su Xingyuan on the stage, holding a spear in his hand, his eyes invincible, and his whole body was surrounded by thunder. Many people's eyes flashed, and then they couldn't help but lower their heads. Su Xingyuan declared his strength in this battle. He is also telling everyone that he is not a piece of fish to be slaughtered by others. If you want to use him to scare the monkeys, you have undoubtedly chosen the wrong person. Several people in the Wuhan University group looked at Su Xingyuan on the ring with calm eyes. A smile appeared on his lips. Interesting, I didn't expect there to be such a genius in the military. One person chuckled. Su Xingyuan has a good nature by challenging the genius of the family head-on. Then there was a sigh in his tone. Lin Wei is just a pawn. If you want to make all the geniuses of the family admit defeat in this way, it is simply impossible. Do you think Su Xingyuan can be on the hidden dragon list? Another person asked aloud. Everyone around them looked thoughtful. Then they all shook their heads slightly. He said, Lin Wei is not even qualified to be on the hidden dragon list, he is just a pawn. This is also a fool. If you don't know your opponent clearly enough and just provoke him at will, Lin Wei is destined to be a victim. Ha, someone chuckled, seeming to have different opinions. The composition of the group at Wuhan University is somewhat complicated. There are children from aristocratic families and some from common people. There will be a fundamental conflict of opinions between the two parties. Different from the reaction of the people in Wuhan, everyone in the military changed their expressions when they saw Lin Wei defeated Su Xingyuan's men. Then his expression was full of excitement. The moment they entered Qinlongyuan, they naturally became a unified camp. Su Xingyuan is the spokesperson of the military. Under the ring, Zhang Rui's face was full of smiles. Zhang Beidao, on the other hand, narrowed his eyes slightly. He said softly, "What a fool. She thinks about things differently than everyone else." Others may feel very comfortable considering that Su Xingyuan defeated Lin Wei. But Zhang Beidao was thinking more long-term. Su Xingyuan defeated Lin Wei, although it seemed to be very encouraging for the time being. But what follows is troublesome. Lin Wei was just a pawn who was pushed out. The Lin family is considered the weakest among all the families. Lin Wei's move must have been inspired by other companies. The purpose is naturally to affect Zhang Zesheng by attacking his students. Step by step, he pressed harder until Zhang Zesheng couldn't bear it anymore and took action. This is their purpose. One is to see if Zhang Zesheng has really reached the martial spirit realm. The other one wanted to test whether Zhang Zesheng's years of research had any effect. If Lin Wei fails, the group of people will launch another pawn. Although Su Xingyuan is good in strength, he is also very talented. But facing the group of people from the aristocratic family, A-level thunder and 7th level warriors are not strong enough. Not even enough. When she came here, she had already found out that among the people from the aristocratic family, there were quite a few people with S-level talents. One Lin Wei fell, and more and stronger people appeared. After all, Su Xingyuan couldn't resist the provocation of those behind him. Unless there are strong people under Zhang Zesheng's disciples. But as far as she knew, the strongest student among Zhang Zesheng's disciples seemed to be Su Xingyuan, an A-level thunder talent. The 7th level warrior realm is also in the middle and top position in Qinlongyuan. But it's not enough, far from enough, to resist the pressing pressure of those people from the aristocratic family. Unless there is someone stronger than Su Xingyuan, a warrior at the 8th level, 9th level, or even a martial artist. But is this possible? The man from the aristocratic family narrowed his eyes when he felt Chen Qi's sharp gaze. During this delay, one of Lin Wei's arms was cut off by Su Xingyuan. Ha, that's interesting. The man who was locked by Chen Qi's piercing gaze chuckled lightly and looked at Chen Qi with a thoughtful look on his face. Chen Qi's gaze just now made him feel pressured. At least the 8th level warrior. After achieving his goal, Chen Qi withdrew his gaze, ignored the gazes of the crowd, and turned to Su Xingyuan on the ring. Holding the spear in his hand at an angle, he was full of fighting spirit and looked indifferent. The look in Su Xingyuan's eyes at this moment was unparalleled in the world. Senior brother Su, you are awesome. Everyone who belonged to the same sect as Chen Qi and Su Xingyuan spoke out one after another. Looks excited. They all come from civilian families. Being able to enter the great Qianlong courtyard is considered a genius. But when they entered here and saw the geniuses of the aristocratic family, Wuhan University and other military forces, although they did not show it, their confidence was already damaged. Su Xingyuan at this moment was equivalent to completely releasing their suppressed hearts. Haha, senior brother Su, awesome. Everyone spoke out one after another. After listening to everyone's words, Su Xingyuan glanced at everyone, then smiled lightly and jumped down from the ring. In the ring, Lin Wei looked pale, and the horror in his eyes still lingered. Seeing Lin Wei's expression, many people in the family couldn't help but frown. Although Lin Wei was a pawn, his defeat at the hands of Su Xingyuan still made them feel a little embarrassed. This group of people have enjoyed good resources and cultivation environment since they were young. What does Su Xingyuan have? Su Xingyuan jumped off the ring, Lin Wei looked pale, and then stumbled off the ring, prompting a round of boos. What's that man's name? Among the crowd of aristocratic families, a young man with a calm expression and a gentle smile on his lips looked at Chen Qi and asked curiously. Following the young man's gaze, Chen Qijung and Su Xingyuan were laughing and chatting, preparing to turn around and leave. After thinking about it carefully in his mind, he immediately knew Chen Qi's information. This group of people already knew everything about everyone in Qinlongyuan. He smiled and said, Chen Qi, with E-level archer talent, was at the 6th level of warrior before entering Qinlongyuan. Ha, are you talented as an archer? The young man raised his lips slightly and looked at Chen Qi with surprise in his eyes. Chen Qi's gaze just now made him feel pressure. How could such a person only have the 6th level of warrior? He is an S-level warrior at the 9th level. Being able to make him feel the pressure can only mean one thing. Chen Qi's strength has definitely reached the 9th level of warrior realm. He shook his head slightly, then looked at Lin Wei, and said lightly, tell the people in the Lin family that Su Xingyuan and the others must handle it. If they can't get it done, there's no need for them to get involved. Okay, Li Yulong. He is a genius of the Li family. Lin Wei is his pawn. Chapter 91. Li Yulong looked at Chen Qi and the others preparing to leave. His eyes fell on a young man next to him who was at the 7th level of a warrior. He said calmly, go and destroy that man named Chen Qi. With a calm tone, he dismissed Chen Qi. These simple words, when heard by the young man who was a 7th level warrior, made his heart tremble. His eyes fell on Chen Qi who was about to leave. He nodded and replied, no problem. After saying this, the young man's figure had already rushed to the ring. Whose name is Chen Qi? Come up. When the young figure first appeared on the ring, he immediately attracted the attention of the surrounding spectators. When they saw the young man's appearance, some people couldn't help but feel shocked. He exclaimed, Li Lin. Although Li Lin's strength is only the 7th level of martial arts, he has a record of defeating the 8th level. In addition, his talent is A-level gold element. The attack was very powerful. But who is Chen Qi? Some people were stunned and glanced around. The name Chen Qi has no impression in my mind. But thinking about Li Lin's identity, some people seemed to understand. Li Lin's move was undoubtedly to win back the battle that the family had lost just now. It is absolutely unacceptable for a family's genius to lose to a student of Zhang Zesheng's disciples. Their purpose was to attack Zhang Zesheng's students, but now Zhang Zesheng has not been able to attack them. On the contrary, it also made Su Xingyuan famous. Su Xingyuan was chosen by them to be the first target for surgery, and now, Chen Qi was their other target for surgery. Listening to the voice coming from behind, Chen Qi stopped. Several people turned to look at Li Lin, who was standing proudly on the ring. Chen Qi raised his eyes calm. Beside them, the smiles of Zhang Ruya and Su Xingyuan gradually disappeared. I didn't kill Lin Wei just now. These people came one after another. There was a hint of chill in Su Xingyuan's tone. Zhang Ruya snorted coldly. Chen Qi, leave this person to me. No need. Chen Qi raised the corners of his lips slightly and spoke in a calm voice. Since he provoked me, then let him do what he wishes. After saying that, he walked forward slowly. Zhang Ruya, Su Xingyuan and Zhang Beidao followed Chen Qi and walked towards the ring. Behind him, the faces of the students who were under Zhang Zesheng's sect like Chen Qi and others changed slightly. Su Xingyuan is very strong. They already knew this. But Chen Qi, as far as they knew, Chen Qi's talent was not very strong, and he came from the same civilian family as them. Lack of resources and low talent. Combined with the two, Chen Qi's strength seems to be predictable. Someone had a sullen face, then turned and left. In the past, Su Xingyuan was provoked, and now it is Chen Qi. They couldn't bear it. Zhang Zesheng said before that if a strong person takes action, then go to him. Now, it's time. No matter how strong Li Lin is, can he still be stronger than the teacher? Chen Qi walked to the bottom of the ring without stopping. He raised his eyes to look at Li Lin, his expression showing no anger at being provoked. Instead, he looked up and down at Li Lin on the stage, and his voice rang out. I really want to know, are all of you geniuses from aristocratic families as strong as you or Lin Wei? Standing on the ring, Li Lin looked down at Chen Qi at the edge of the ring. Listening to what Chen Qi said, he first glanced at Su Xingyuan next to Chen Qi, then withdrew his gaze without looking at Chen Qi, and said lightly, "If you are afraid, then you can ask Su Xingyuan to come up. Senior brother Xingyuan just had a duel with Lin Wei. Are you trying to take advantage by letting him go up now? Are all the geniuses of this family a villain like you? Senior brother Chen Qi, you don't need to take action, I'll go." Everyone spoke out one after another, listening to the disdain and sarcasm from Li Lin on the stage. Someone suddenly couldn't bear it anymore and wanted to go on stage. When Su Xingyuan was provoked, they were already very dissatisfied with the geniuses of the family. Lin Wei, a warrior at the 8th level, actually challenged Su Xingyuan, a warrior at the 7th level, to a fight. If a strong man fights a weak man, he will be looked down upon. A strong person should look like a strong person. Bullying the weak is called a strong one. Everyone was filled with indignation, and Zhang Beidao sighed slightly. Then he looked up at Li Lin on the ring and said, "Li Lin, do you Li family people only know these dirty things? Who are you?" Zhang Beidao's tone was full of dissatisfaction, and his words were even more accountable. This made Li Lin's eyes finally fall on Zhang Beidao. "Ha!" Zhang Beidao sneered, and then said again, "Li Lin, do you want the person behind you to come out? I just have itchy hands recently. I heard that he has broken through to the 9th level of the warrior. He is already preparing for the martial arts realm. I really want to see if he is still the same useless person as before after breaking through to the 9th level of warrior realm." "You." Li Lin's eyes flashed and he was about to speak. But the next second, he seemed to remember something. Then his face changed, and he looked at Zhang Beidao with fear. "Get out." Zhang Beidao's face turned cold and he said without mercy. Li Lin's expression kept changing, and he wanted to scold Zhang Beidao, but when he thought of her identity and the person behind her, he opened his mouth and couldn't say a word. "Zhang Beidao, do you really think you can defeat me?" Li Lin didn't dare to speak, but someone dared to speak. Li Yulong slowly walked out of the crowd, looked at the baby-faced Zhang Beidao in front of him, and spoke in a deep voice. The sudden change made Chen Qi and Su Xingyuan look surprised. Zhang Beidao and Su Xingyuan seemed to be very difficult to deal with. According to Zhang Ruya, Zhang Beidao should be very interested in Su Xingyuan. However, the two seemed to be in conflict with each other. Zhang Beidao looked down on Su Xingyuan, and Su Xingyuan retorted, "You come and I go." Looking at Zhang Beidao in front of them, both of them were slightly stunned. At this moment, Zhang Beidao suddenly seemed to be a different person. Loli. Even if she is a Lolita, she is probably a Lolita with a genius and incredible strength. Zhang Beidao snorted coldly. "Li Yulong, you people have gone too far. The 8th level is about to fight against the 7th level, and now the 7th level is about to fight against the 6th level. If you want to fight, then I will fight with you. Do you dare?" After the words fell, Chen Qi was stunned. Is Zhang Beidao standing up for himself? Su Xingyuan's eyes flashed, and he quietly leaned into Zhang Ruya's ear and whispered, "Old Zhang, why do I think your sister looks much better now?" "Ah." Zhang Ruya smiled bitterly, glanced at Zhang Beidao quietly, and said nothing. "Humph, I'm not dating you today." Li Yulong pretended not to hear Zhang Beidao's words of contempt for him and changed the subject. Look at Chen Qi and others standing behind Zhang Beidao. He raised his eyebrows and said playfully, "Chen Qi, you archery god students wouldn't refuse Li Lin's request to compete, right? Furthermore, there are also regulations in Qinlongyuan, and everyone is free to engage in battle. If you refuse the fight, you will have to pay 100 Dragon Academy points." Shameless, so shameless. Maid, this is naked coercion. The points of the Dragon Court are 100. Our Dragon Court points are only 100 points a month. This approach is to take away Chen Qi's points and make him completely helpless. Practice. This is an unfair fight. Li Lin has an A-level talent, and senior brother Chen Qi only has an E-level talent. One is at the 7th level and the other is at the 6th level. It's really shameless. Listening to everyone's discussion, Chen Qi smiled. Then he looked at Li Lin on the ring, and finally looked at Li Yulong who was walking out of the crowd of aristocratic families. Said suddenly, "Since you came here for my points, why not let's have a fair fight? If I win, the dragon court points for you and Li Lin for the first month will be mine. If I lose, I will give you and Li Lin the dragon court points for 4 months. Ha ha. Chen Qi's words fell on everyone's ears. It made many people laugh. Li Yulong smiled brightly. I have to admit that you are indeed very confident. But what people here lack most is self-confidence. I agree to your request. I want to see how you, a 6th level warrior, can defeat Li Lin. At the end of the sentence, he couldn't help but feel funny about Chen Qi's suggestion. Chen Qi's impression label has been labeled as a fool. Zhang Beidao looked at Chen Qi with anger in his expression. The words in his mouth were even more merciless. Chen Qi, now is not the time for you to show off. Li Lin's A-level talent is much stronger than yours. You are no match for him. You've been fooled by them. Chen Qi shook his head slightly, smiled at Zhang Beidao, then looked at Li Yulong and said slowly. Maybe there's something wrong with my statement just now. I mean you two can come together. As soon as the words fell, the whole place was in an uproar. Did they hear it correctly? What does Chen Qi mean by this? What he means is that he's going to. 1 against 2. Crazy. 6th level warrior versus Li Lin, the 7th level warrior, plus Li Yulong, the 9th level warrior. 1 versus 2. There was silence. Li Yulong's smile froze on his face, with a look of disbelief on his face. Slowly said, do you know what you are talking about? A warrior at the 6th level. Zhang Beidao was also stunned. He tugged at Chen Qi anxiously, then took a step to block Chen Qi behind him and said, Chen Qi has something wrong with his brain, and his words don't count. Among the geniuses of the family, someone joked, oh, I understand, all the students accepted by the arrow god are fools. Whenever a fool can enter Qinlongyuan. Haha, arrow god student. Su Xingyuan and the people behind him had anger in their eyes. He took one step forward and shouted coldly, Li Lin, I'll fight you. After saying that, he will jump onto the stage. But a hand quietly placed on his shoulder, making him feel a huge pressure. Turning his head to look, the smile on Chen Qi's face gradually disappeared and was replaced by calmness. A faint voice said, come together, I'm in a hurry. Chen Qi, you. Su Xingyuan wanted to speak, but when he saw Chen Qi's unusually calm eyes, he couldn't say anything to persuade him. At this moment, Chen Qi seemed to be carrying an incomparable sense of confidence. The two people in front of them, Li Yulong and Li Lin, were a 7th level warrior and a 9th level warrior. And what about Chen Qi? The strength Su Xingyuan knew was only at the 6th level of warrior at that time. And what kind of strength will Chen Qi have now? He is now a 7th level warrior, which is the result of spending a lot of resources. Chen Qi's talent is not as good as his own. Although his cultivation speed is abnormal, he is probably about the same as him now. The warrior is at the 7th level, up to the 8th level. Li Yulong looked at Chen Qi with amusement in his eyes. I don't know if you are smart or stupid. But if you want to die, I'll be happy to do so. After saying no more nonsense, the figure suddenly appeared on the ring. Li Yulong and Li Lin looked down at Chen Qi under the ring. Believe him, sister, Chen Qi is not a fool. Zhang Beidao still wanted to persuade, but Zhang Ruya gently pulled her, looked at Chen Qi's back and said softly. Chen Qi walked slowly and stepped onto the ring step by step. Since he didn't bring any arrows, he chose to use a spear instead of a broken army bow. With a slight pat, the originally silver iron rod turned into a silver gun with a swish sound. The silver gun is held diagonally in the hand, the cold light flowing from the tip of the gun. Li Yulong and Li Lin looked at Chen Qi, who was slowly approaching. There was a hint of solemnity in his eyes. Although Chen Qi only made a simple movement, he exuded an extremely powerful aura. Li Yulong raised his eyebrows. As far as I know, you are only talented as an archer and use a spear to fight. I have to say that your choice is really stupid. Chen Qi's eyes were calm, but there was a hint of coldness in his eyes, and then he said lightly, I also know a little bit about spears. Haha, you know a little bit about it. Li Yulong sneered. Since you choose to fight with a spear, I won't take advantage of you. I will add another 100 Longyuan points. As long as you beat the two of us, the total will be 400 points. It depends on whether you can get it. After the words fell, many people in the crowd watching around the ring laughed. Li Yulong's words are really shameless. The strength of these two people is much higher than that of Chen Qi, but they are still pretending to be generous here. Chen Qi is a 6th level martial artist, so he would be awesome if he could defeat two people. Chen Qi was destined not to get these hundreds of Longyuan points. You have to lose 1 month of Longyuan points. It's so hypocritical. Someone in the Wuhan University looked at Li Yulong on the stage, sneered, and then said mercilessly, "If there are people like this among the geniuses of the family, then I don't think there is any need to stand with them." Quote, "There is no posture that a strong man should have, and he is extremely hypocritical." The other person nodded slightly and said in agreement. Zhang Beidao snorted, "How shameless." Zhang Ruya nodded in agreement and looked at Li Yulong and Li Lin with a cold look in her eyes. Su Xingyuan's expression remained unchanged, and there was thunder in his eyes. Chen Qi smiled. Okay. After that, they stopped talking nonsense. The blade of the sword in Li Lin's hand flashed with golden light. A sharp aura filled the air. The eyes looking at Chen Qi were full of cold light. With one step, he covered a distance of tens of meters, and then slashed towards Chen Qi like the sharpest knife. Li Yulong sneered and looked at Li Lin, who flashed out without making any move. He was only a 6th level warrior. With Li Lin, a 7th level warrior and a man with the gold element, it seemed that he no longer needed to take action at all. He could even see the scene where Chen Qi was deposed by Li Lin. Feeling the sharp aura coming from Li Lin's body, Chen Qi's eyes narrowed slightly. The talent of gold element. He didn't expect that Li Lin was actually gifted with the gold element. The gold element is a talent comparable to Su Xingyuan's thunder talent, and is extremely suitable for attacking. One is sharp, the other is violent. The silver spear flashed with cold light and stabbed out fiercely. Every inch is longer and every inch is stronger. The sword was sharp, cutting through the air and heading straight towards Chen Qi at extremely fast speed. Chen Qi arrived first and stabbed out with one shot. There was a clang and sparks sputtered. Li Lin's arm went numb, and the sword left a deep mark on the silver spear. His expression was startled, and he tensed up as he looked at the tip of the spear aimed at him. Then he jumped up suddenly, trying to dodge the shot. However, the moment he jumped up, the original spear changed instantly. Lift it up suddenly. Laugh. The tip of the spear flashed with cold light, as if it was about to split his entire life in half. As his body fell, Li Lin adjusted his body and slashed down with his sword. Clang. The tip of the silver gun broke instantly. With the blessing of the sharp golden element, the tip of the spear was instantly cut off. As soon as he landed, Li Lin kicked hard and turned into a stream of light that slashed towards Chen Qi. Chen Qi looked calm and raised the corners of his mouth slightly. Without the tip of the silver spear, half of the threat was suddenly lost. The distance between the two was now only a few steps. The silver spear was like a long stick. The arm holding the spear suddenly exerted force, and then the body of the silver spear bent instantly, and then swept towards Li Lin in front of him at an even more powerful speed. A buzzing sound and a dull sound suddenly came from the air. Collapse. Close range moves in gun skills. The spearhead that lost its tip swept forward at an extremely fast speed, almost too fast for people to react. Li Lin looked startled and felt a dull sound coming from the side. He only had time to block the sword at his side. The next moment, there was a bang. The huge power from the gun poured onto him instantly. It hit the ring hard. Chen Qi's face was expressionless, and then he took a step forward. An extremely fierce killing intent suddenly arose in his body. One shot. With this shot, he was going to destroy Li Lin. Not far away, Li Yulong's pupils shrank suddenly when he saw Li Lin being shot away by Chen Qi. Can't sit still anymore. A long sword appeared in his hand, and his figure disappeared in a flash. Li Lin cannot die, nor can he be deposed. Clang. A long sword stood in front of Li Lin. Stop Chen Qi's shot. The wind howled so hard that Li Lin almost didn't dare to breathe. The spear that had lost its tip was stopped a few centimeters from his chest. Roll. Qi and blood suddenly boiled in the body, and spiritual energy was mobilized. The strength of the 9th level warrior suddenly exploded. Kick out. Suddenly, a figure flew out. Then the spear that lost its tip was smashed down again. Ah! Screams sounded. One of Li Lin's legs was violently broken. Chen Qi showed his strength as a 9th level warrior for the first time. Invincible in the world, his calm eyes no longer hide, scanning the surroundings. Like an awakened dragon, the 9th level of warrior realm. The aura of the 9th level warrior suddenly rose. Everyone around the ring was stunned. No one expected that Chen Qi's strength had reached the 9th level of warrior realm. Zhang Beitao's eyes widened and he exclaimed, 9th level warrior. His eyes were full of disbelief. Xiao Zhang, didn't you say that Chen Qi is a 6th level warrior? She turned to look at Zhang Ruya beside her and asked. Zhang Ruya smiled bitterly, and then said helplessly, the last time I saw Chen Qi take action, he was at the 6th level of a warrior. He was also startled by Chen Qi's sudden aura. The 9th level of warrior. He is now at the 7th level of warrior. And this is because my family provides a lot of training resources. Chen Qi definitely did not consume as many resources as him. But the speed of improvement in strength is very fast. Su Xingyuan's expression froze, the corners of his mouth twitched, and he cursed in his heart, animal. He thought that his talent was not weak, but compared with Chen Qi, it was like a swap between the two. He is the E-level talent. The 9th level warrior aura suddenly revealed on Chen Qi's body fell into the eyes of everyone behind Su Xingyuan. Everyone immediately exclaimed, looking at Chen Qi with eyes full of excitement. The 9th level of warrior realm. Such strength is considered a genius even in Qinlongyuan. Looking at Li Yulong who was kicked out by Chen Qi, smiles suddenly broke out on everyone's faces. I'm afraid Li Yulong didn't expect that Chen Qi, who had always been a warrior at the 6th level in his eyes, was actually at the 9th level. A family of geniuses. When they felt the aura on Chen Qi's body, many people's expressions changed slightly. This group of people usually have a lot of cultivation resources, and it can even be said that they are never lacking. But among their group, the strongest one is only the 9th level warrior. As for the more talented group of people, they would never participate in such a meaningless fight. They have only one goal, to become stronger. Moreover, before the talent plan started, they already had almost all the information about everyone here. 9th level. Chen Qi is not simple, he is definitely not an E-level talent. I'm afraid the information we have is completely useless. Quote. The 6th level of warrior, the 6th level of fart. Everyone was talking a lot, looking at Chen Qi on the ring with thoughtful eyes. It seems that it is necessary to collect again from Chen Qi's hands. Even collecting information on everyone present. It is different from the reaction of people from aristocratic families and the military. As Wuhan University has the largest number of students, many students from Yandu Wuhan University have been selected into the talent plan. As the top 10 freshmen, it was no surprise that they were selected into Qinlongyuan. At this moment, two young men in simple clothes and dark skin were looking up at Chen Qi on the ring, with surprise flashing in their eyes. Both of them, like Chen Qi, were from common people. Both of them are S-level geniuses. In Yandu University, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, among the top 10, there are 8 people with very unusual backgrounds. The 2 of them can be ranked in the top 10 only because of their strength. The strength of the 7th level warrior is not weak. The lack of resources was the most important reason for the slow pace of their cultivation. As far as I know, Chen Qi seems to be a commoner. Shen Zheng, who was slightly taller, looked at Chen Qi's figure and said to Wang Yuan beside him. Wang Yuan is about 175, slightly thinner, with dark skin, and is shorter than Shen Zheng. But he looked determined. Listening to Shen Zheng's words, Wang Yuan nodded slightly, glanced at the geniuses in the family, and said, his talent is definitely not E-level. You and I are both S-level talents, and we know the speed of practicing S-level talents very well. We are always seizing the time to practice, but now we are only at the 7th level. As he said that, he looked at Chen Qi's figure, doubts flashing in his eyes. There are 2 possibilities, either he is not from a civilian background, or he is not an E-level talent at all. After Wang Yuan finished speaking, Shen Zheng looked stunned and looked at Chen Qi on the ring, lost in thought. Chen Qi didn't feel anything about the discussion under the ring. He was not surprised that the silver spear was cut off by Li Lin. The metal element is very sharp. Although Li Lin is only a 7th level warrior, the alloy spear in his hand is obviously unable to keep up with his strength. Li Yulong was kicked away by Chen Qi, and there were clear footprints on his chest. Feeling the pain in his chest, he suddenly raised his head and looked at Chen Qi, who was slowly approaching with a long alloy stick that had lost its tip. The original relief on his face was no longer there. It was replaced by a solemn look. I didn't expect you to be at the 9th level of a warrior. Chen Qi stopped and raised the corners of his lips slightly. It's not too late to know now. Feeling the aura rising from Chen Qi's body, those calm eyes enveloped Li Yulong, making him feel a hint of danger inexplicably. Chen Qi's tone was indifferent, even with a hint of ridicule. Li Yulong's face was gloomy, and his sinister eyes suddenly turned into anger. What about the 9th level of warrior? I am also a 9th level warrior. After saying that, a sword gleam erupted from the long sword and struck the ring, leaving a deep pit mark. S-level wind element. The cold light flickering on the sword faded away, and an invisible layer of wind element was attached to the sword. Wind elements lingered around him, blowing his hair and making him look murderous. Chen Qi's expression remained unchanged, and he quietly looked at the wind elements around Li Yulong. The spear has turned into a long stick, with a diagonal cut like the tip of a spear, and the cold light is sharp. The two of them said nothing nonsense and took action together. The long sword was slashed out of the air in Li Yulong's hand, and several wind blades turned into cold light, intertwined with murderous intent. The momentum is huge and extremely sharp. Chen Qi stared slightly, and his black eyes quietly turned into amber. The silver gun was blocked in front of him, the wind blade left traces on the gun body, and then his body moved slightly, passing through several wind blades, like a dancer dancing on the tip of the knife. The silver spear is sharp and sharp, one shot points out. There was no murderous intent like before, silently piercing the air. Some only have the cold light flashing from time to time on the sharp edge of the bevel incision. The tip of the spear was cut off, and Li Yulong didn't take Chen Qi's action too seriously. Both of them are at the 9th level of martial arts, he is an S-level talent, and what about Chen Qi? It's just an E-level archer talent. Instead of using a longbow, he chose to use a spear without talent blessing. In his opinion, this was a stupid choice in itself. However, when he saw Chen Qi's sudden shot, a gust of cold air instantly shot from the soles of his feet to the top of his head. My scalp is numb. How could he see the weakness in his move? Li Yulong's face showed panic, and he stopped suddenly, then put his feet on the ground and violently raised his sword to block his chest. There was a clang, and the sharp point of the bevel cut touched the sword body. Huge power was transmitted to his chest through the sword. Bang! Thump thump thump. Li Yulong's figure kept retreating. His face was pale, and his eyes looking at Chen Qi were full of horror. The power Chen Qi burst out was actually stronger than himself. What horrified him was that the silver spear he had just pointed had no intention of stopping at all, and went straight towards his chest. Not only did the speed not slow down, but it suddenly accelerated. Chen Qi's eyes turned cold. There are high and low levels of strength, and the same goes for talent. Coincidentally, I am better than Li Yulong in both of these things. With the dragon court points that Li Yulong lost to him this time, he would have enough confidence to break through to the martial arts realm. Even the 3rd level of martial arts. Li Yulong couldn't help but retreat, his feet thumping on the ring, leaving footprints one after another. In his eyes, the original relaxation and disdain had long disappeared. The relaxation in his eyes quickly faded, turning into surprise, shock, and horror. Finally, it turned into the fear that it is now. There was a cold light at the bevel cut of the spear. The breath of death rushed into the nose, and then quickly spread to the entire body. His eyelids were twitching wildly and his eyebrows were tingling. Although the tip of the spear had been cut off by Li Lin, the fear it brought to him was not reduced at all. In Chen Qi's hands, there seemed to be no difference between the spear that had lost its tip. In the eye, the bevel incision follows. The fear in Li Yulong's eyes suddenly magnified, and then his survival instinct and pride from childhood made him unable to contain his rage. There was a fierceness in his eyes that made people's hearts tremble. Furious. Why do you do so? The qi and blood in the body are constantly boiling, the spiritual energy is being extracted crazily, and the talent is completely mobilized. In his hand, the long sword buzzed. The speed of retreat suddenly accelerated, and then disappeared in a flash. Chen Qi narrowed his eyes slightly. Under the innate skill of eagle-eye insight, although Li Yulong was fast, Chen Qi still caught his movements. The moment Li Yulong disappeared, the spear in his hand swiped towards the left. Clang! The sword and the spear collided, and Li Yulong's eyes widened. His current speed is almost comparable to that of an ordinary second-level warrior. Normally, Chen Qi would definitely not be able to react at such a fast speed. But he could see it very clearly just now. The moment he made a move, Chen Qi also made a move at the same time, even slightly faster than him. How is this possible? Li Yulong looked full of disbelief. His arms were numb, and the spear was already stronger than the sword. This blow directly caused his body to retreat uncontrollably again. Ha! Chen Qi raised the corners of his lips slightly, suddenly exerted force on the soles of his feet on the ring, and then his whole body moved towards Li Yulong in an instant. Before Li Yulong could react, Chen Qi's slender five-fingered palm had already grabbed his arm. Then under his horrified gaze, the hand holding his arm suddenly exerted force and pulled his retreating figure. Then he couldn't stop approaching Chen Qi. At a glance, this scene looked like Li Yulong wanted to retreat, but Chen Qi stretched out his hand to pull him in front of him. Do you really think that I am an ordinary 9th-level warrior? Chen Qi's voice sounded, and he grabbed Li Yulong's arm with force, lifted Li Yulong up, and then slammed him onto the ring. Bang! Li Yulong felt as if his whole body was falling apart. A face was covered with blood, and his chest was slightly sunken. He was confused. Is this still the 9th level of a warrior? Or is it an archer talent? Is this called knowing a little about marksmanship? At this moment, Chen Qi looked like an all-powerful warrior. Not weak in melee combat, powerful, and even able to attack from a distance. Li Yulong shook his head slightly and wanted to stand up, but at this moment, the spear that lost its tip turned into a stream of light. With a pop, it penetrated his right shoulder and pinned him to the ring. The pain instantly spread throughout the body. He turned to look. Chen Qi's eyes were calm and he came slowly with an expressionless face. When the pair of combat boots stopped in front of him, Chen Qi's calm voice sounded. If this is your strength, then I'm a little disappointed. Li Yulong wanted to say something, but when he saw Chen Qi's calm eyes, he could no longer say the rest. Lost. He has always boasted that he is not weak and has the aura of genius. From the moment he stepped into Qianlong courtyard, he never looked at Chen Qi and his group. Zhang Zesheng is already like this, how talented can Chen Qi and his disciples be? There was Su Xingyuan in the front, and Chen Qi in the back. Li Yulong's face was pale and his eyes were lifeless. Don't forget the 400 Longyuan points. Chen Qi glanced at him lightly, then turned and left. Under the ring, the crowd of onlookers had already fallen into a state of sluggishness. The geniuses of the family looked at Li Yulong who was nailed on the ring, their expressions filled with confusion. Looking at Chen Qi slowly walking down the ring. The smiles on everyone's faces had long since disappeared, replaced by incomparable solemnity. Among them, Li Yulong is no longer considered a weakling. The strength of a warrior at the 9th level is considered to be among the top. When they heard Chen Qi's arrogant one-on-one fight, everyone laughed, thinking that Chen Qi had a mental problem and was a fool. But the truth will make people shut up. Very strong, someone said softly. Well, it is indeed very strong. A talented archer can defeat Li Yulong, who is also a 9th level warrior, with a spear. This is no longer an ordinary genius. It seems that it is necessary to check Chen Qi's identity. Around the ring, everyone in the martial arts group looked at Li Yulong who was nailed to the ring, and looked at Chen Qi with surprise in their eyes. Wang Yuan and Shen Zheng looked at each other. Shen Zheng looked serious. Very strong, he is definitely not an E-level talent. With a smile on his lips, Wang Yuan looked at the figure walking down the ring, surprise flashing in his eyes. I feel like he's our hope. Shen Zheng's face changed slightly, his eyes fell on Wang Yuan's face, and he said softly, you really don't think about it? Wang Yuan raised his eyes, shook his head slightly, and said in his voice, you know very well what those geniuses from aristocratic families think of us. Do you really think you can enter that circle by accepting their solicitation? Don't be naive. I don't know what the people standing behind them think, but they will definitely not let you in. Accepting the recruitment means that you and I will be branded as a noble family. A beast in captivity is still a beast. After taking a deep look at Shen Zheng, Wang Yuan left expressionlessly and walked in the direction of Chen Qi. Zhang Beidao's eyes were full of shock. Looking at Chen Qi's face, she fell into confusion. Isn't it the promised 6th level warrior, E-level talent? Zhang Ruya glanced at Su Xingyuan quietly and twitched her lips. I said I don't know when he reached the 9th level of the warrior, do you believe it? Su Xingyuan glanced at him sideways, already complaining secretly in his heart. He and Zhang Ruya were seizing every moment to practice during this period. Resources continued to be devoured, and I thought I could catch up with Chen Qi, but I didn't expect that not only did I not catch up, but I seemed to be thrown away by Chen Qi. Senior brother Chen Qi, you are so powerful. Ha 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 ha. Senior brother Chen Qi, you are so powerful. 1 against 2, one will be disabled and one will be injured. Ha ha ha, I'm laughing so hard. I've never heard of anyone rushing to give someone long yuan points. You'll get 400 points as a gift. Tisk, tisk, now someone may feel distressed. Everyone's faces were full of smiles. The words he spoke were like slaps raised high, slapping Li Lin and Li Yulong on their faces. At the same time, it also slapped the faces of many geniuses from aristocratic families. When Chen Qi walked in front of everyone, he was immediately surrounded by everyone. His face was full of excitement and he kept praising him. Chen Qi. A voice sounded. Turning around, he saw the dark-skinned Wang Yuanzhang greeting Chen Qi with a smile. Looking at Wang Yuan, who was dark-skinned and 1.75 meters tall, Chen Qi smiled and nodded. Although he didn't know who Wang Yuan was, Chen Qi had already noticed Wang Yuan when he was in the ring. Someone from Wuhan University. I am Wang Yuan, S-level gold element talent, 7th level warrior. Wang Yuan smiled and reported his name, and also reported his talent and strength without concealing it. Such a gesture is undoubtedly a sign of goodwill. Chen Qi smiled and nodded. Is something wrong? Brother Wang Yuan. Looking at the excited people in front of him, Wang Yuan nodded, and then said with a smile, I'll chat with you when you have time. Okay. Wang Yuan suddenly appeared and expressed his goodwill, which made Chen Qi a little confused. Hearing this, he nodded. Suddenly, several figures walked towards the arena. When they saw a few people, the originally excited people and the people in Wuhan University who were talking suddenly became quiet. The teachers from Qianlong Academy came, and Yi Zhenghao was also among them. But Zhang Zesheng did not appear. Li Wenshan, who was at the 5th level of martial arts, Li Yulong and Li Lin were all his students. In Qianlong Courtyard, it is not just Chen Qi and his group who have aristocratic families. Teachers also have distinctions between aristocratic families, the military, and Wuhan University. And Li Wenshan belongs to the Li family. In the ring, Li Lin screamed. One of his legs had been blown to pieces by Chen Qi's shot, and the only way to recover was by the strong. Screams echoed. Li Yulong, on the other hand, was nailed to the ring with a silver spear, unable to move, his face was pale, and his eyes were lifeless. He no longer looked as confident as before. Li Wenshan had a sullen face and glanced at the people around him. Sparring in the ring, using such a heavy hand, what do you want to do? This is persecuting human geniuses. Yi Zhenghao looked at Li Yulong and Li Lin on the ring, shook his head slightly, raised his hand slightly, and the spear without the tip fell into his hand. Stand up, Li Wenshan said with a calm face and a calm voice. Listening to Li Wenshan's voice, Li Yulong's dull eyes moved, and then he struggled to get up. Li Lin endured the pain, his face turned pale, and he tried to struggle to get up, but as soon as he got up, a strong aura pressed on him, and he fell to the ring with a bang, and a mouthful of blood spurted out. His face was as pale as paper. Fell into coma. His chest rose and fell slightly, as if he would lose his breath in the next second. Why are you still standing there? Send him to treatment quickly. As soon as the words fell, several people came to the stage and carried the unconscious Li Lin away quickly. Looking at Li Lin being carried away, despair flashed across Li Yulong's eyes. Although he didn't feel the fleeting breath, he knew that Li Lin, who was still wailing and screaming just now, would never fall into a coma for no reason. Judging from Li Lin's state just now, it is very likely that he has been seriously injured or even killed. The journey to martial arts is hopeless. Yi Zhenghao glanced at Li Wenshan, and then said, there is no problem in a competition between students. Let's stop this matter. The two strong men standing next to him glanced at the sullen Li Wenshan and said nothing. Yi Zhenghao is stronger than Li Wenshan, and he is also from the Yi family, and his relationship with Zhang Zesheng is not bad. He could talk and persuade, but they couldn't. Although they are not weak in strength, there are too many strong men from the Li family behind Li Wenxian. The two of them in the martial spirit realm have no chance to speak. HMPH. Li Wenxian's eyes fell on Yi Zhenghao. He snorted softly, and then said lightly, Yi Zhenghao, when the rules of Qianlong Courtyard were originally set, you were also involved. There's nothing wrong with students competing, but if they hit so hard, there's something wrong. His eyes glanced at the two people standing next to Yi Zhenghao. Everyone in Qianlong Courtyard is the light of my human race. Vicious students like Chen Qi must be punished. Yi Zhenghao raised his eyes slightly and asked expressionlessly, how are you going to punish me? Half a year's Longyuan points will be deducted and the treatment costs for 2 people will be borne. Li Wenzhang glanced at Chen Qi and said expressionlessly. As soon as this statement came out, it immediately attracted discussion from the surrounding people. Li Yulong and Li Lin challenged Chen Qi first, and Chen Qi defeated them 1-on-2. Now, half a year's worth of Longyuan points and treatment fees have to be deducted. Is this fair? Listening to the discussions of the people around him, Li Wenzhang's expression remained unchanged and his eyes fell on Yi Zhenghao and the others. The eyes of the 2 people beside Yi Zhenghao flashed and they remained silent. Yi Zhenghao was about to speak. A faint voice sounded. The sound was loud and resounded throughout the Qianlong Courtyard. Li Wenzhang, if you say one more word, I will kill you. Li Wenzhang suddenly raised his head and was about to speak. In the distance, there was a loud explosion. It seemed like something terrifying had appeared. In the sky, a terrifying divine arrow tore through the space, pierced the clouds, and seemed to tear the entire sky apart at a glance. The killing intent is overwhelming. A divine arrow composed of spiritual power, Qi and blood power, and aura suddenly appeared. Appeared suddenly in everyone's shocked eyes. Li Wenzhang's scalp was numb and his body disappeared in a flash. The arrow shot into the ring with a bang. Bang! The extremely hard arena exploded under this arrow. Turned into powder all over the sky. Zhang Zesheng. A figure immediately appeared in the minds of Li Wenzhang, Yi Zhenghao and others. The figure was gentle and elegant, like a scholar. But there seems to be endless killing intent hidden in his eyes. Like a murderous god coming to the world. Li Wenzhang's heart was beating wildly and he raised his eyes to look into the distance. His gaze seemed to span time and space. On the small building with mottled walls in the distance, a figure sneered, with murderous intent in his eyes, and the fighting spirit rising around him disappeared in a flash. It's as if it never appeared. No one expected that Zhang Zesheng would take action at this moment. And the strength he unleashed is almost comparable to that of the martial king realm. Everyone knows what this means. Under Zhang Zesheng's arrow, the arena turned into powder and scattered. Everyone was shocked by what Zhang Zesheng said just now in the scene in front of them. Including Yi Zhenghao and others. It was the first time for almost everyone to see Zhang Zesheng take action. This arrow left Li Wenzhang speechless. He was in the martial spirit realm and knew very well how powerful Zhang Zesheng's arrow just now was. This is Zhang Zesheng's warning. He was just injured and his realm fell. But he's not dead. Longbows can still kill people. Li Wenzhang's expression changed, and then he disappeared instantly without saying a word. Yi Zhenghao shook his head slightly, a smile flashing across his expression. He waved his hand. Let's break up and go practice. Everyone dispersed. After everyone dispersed, Yi Zhenghao looked at the 2 people beside him. A calm voice sounded. Don't push him too hard. Once he goes crazy, you guys will most likely die. Even destroying an aristocratic family is not difficult for him. You know exactly what happened in that matter. The reason why he didn't take action against you is that he didn't have enough evidence and someone was suppressing him. After saying that, he chuckled and disappeared. You 2 looked at me, I looked at you, and smiled helplessly. The aristocratic families behind them are neither close nor far apart from Zhang Zesheng, and they are neutral. Zhang Zesheng's sudden attack was a warning to these people. He, Zhang Zesheng, was once the most talented archer. Although I am old, my arrows are still sharp. 400 Longyuan points were sent quickly. Zhang Zesheng shot a shocking arrow, shutting up Li Wenzhang instantly. No more comments. Their purpose was not to drive Zhang Zesheng crazy. The fight in the ring was originally initiated by Li Yulong, but Li Lin and the others deliberately provoked it. If they lose now, they lose. That arrow gave everyone a clear understanding of Zhang Zesheng's current strength. A small building that belongs exclusively to Chen Qi. In front of him, there were exchanged resources. Alien Beast Crystal Core, Spiritual Crystal Stone, Qi and Blood Pill. At the peak of the 9th level of martial arts, Chen Qi is only one step away from breaking through to the martial arts realm. These resources in front of me are the opportunity for me to break into the martial arts realm. He grabbed the Qi and Blood Pill in front of him and swallowed it in one gulp. The power of the medicine circulated in the body, and the Chen Qi action did not stop, so he swallowed the Qi and Blood Pill again. More powerful medicine flows through the body. Qi and blood began to boil gradually at this moment, growing slowly. 222 points of Qi and blood. If you want to break through to the martial arts realm, you need to have 300 Qi and blood. The second-grade Qi and blood pills had very little effect on him, and all he exchanged for this time were the 4th-grade Qi and blood pills. Qi and blood surged continuously, like a surging river. In the quiet room, you can almost hear the sound of blood boiling in the body. 225,228. Chen Qi grabbed a handful of Qi and blood pills again and swallowed them in one gulp. Too slow, too slow. Resources continue to decrease, and the Qi and blood in the body become more and more manic. Finally, when Chen Qi swallowed the last handful of Qi and blood pills, the violent potion exploded. This time, the violent medicinal power pushed the energy and blood in the body higher and higher. Then, the energy and blood were 299. A powerful aura suddenly rose in the room. The war spirit method has been continuously operating. Spiritual energy gathered crazily, nourishing and strengthening Chen Qi's body and nourishing his internal organs at the same time. Elusive and real armor emerged around him. Not enough, just a little less. A ruthless look flashed in Chen Qi's eyes, and the energy and blood in his body was just a step away. The Qi and blood pills were all consumed at this moment. His eyes fell on the alien beast crystal core in front of him. Although the energy contained in the alien beast crystal core of the 9th level warrior was not as high as that of the Qi and blood pill, it was still quite a lot. Without hesitation, he picked up 2 and put them in his mouth. The fishy smell filled the mouth, making people frown, but Chen Qi's expression remained unchanged. He has long been accustomed to this kind of smell. 300 blood. Martial arts realm. Chen Qi's movements did not stop and he was still swallowing crazily. If ordinary warriors swallowed these resources in front of them, they would already be unable to withstand such strong medicinal power. But Chen Qi still felt that it was not enough. The first level of martial arts is not his goal. He wants to break through to the second level of martial arts, or even the third level. In the other 2 small buildings next to Chen Qi's small building, the people who were cultivating suddenly opened their eyes. Looking towards where Chen Qi was, his eyes were filled with surprise and uncertainty. Such a strong aura, could it be that he is breaking through to the martial arts realm? Hiss. It's terrifying. Almost all the spiritual energy around me has been extracted. This is going crazy. He is indeed a genius who can defeat Li Yulong. Chen Qi defeated Li Yulong and Li Lin, and this record has been circulated in Qianlong Courtyard. The name Chen Qi was also deeply remembered by everyone. In a certain small building, Li Yulong stood in the living room. In front of him, a young man with a faint smile on his face was sitting on the sofa. The whole person looks gentle and elegant, which is completely opposite to Li Yulong's temperament. A 9th level warrior and a 7th level warrior were defeated by a person of civilian origin. Li Shu's smile continued, his eyes full of surprise. Some time ago, he did not go to the ring. He is preparing for the Qianlong list. The ranking of the Qianlong ranking is about to begin, and everyone is preparing for this. As a 5th level martial artist, he would naturally not miss this opportunity. Being on the Qianlong list not only allows you to get more resources, but also increases your chances of entering the core of the talent plan. Li Yulong's injuries have recovered. Listening to Li Shu's words, he said softly, Chen Qi is very strong. No one knew that his strength had reached the 9th level of a warrior before this. At this point, he paused. Besides, I suspect that his talent is not E-level at all. It may even be that his talent is not archer at all, but other talents. Li Shu nodded slightly and said softly, Yulong, it's not unfair for you to lose to him. This Chen Qi is extraordinary. How is the information you checked? Li Yulong shook his head slightly, handed Chen Qi's information to Li Shu, and said, we investigated his information again. Still haven't found anything unusual. When I was in martial arts high school, my awakened talent was indeed E-level archer, but now it seems that it is completely wrong. Li Shu looked down at Chen Qi's information in his hand and frowned, E-class archer. When he saw something, he let out a light sigh, and then asked, he was forced to drop out of school. Li Yulong nodded. When he was in the second martial arts high school, he had a grudge with a student named Li Ji. With that said, he handed another piece of information to Li Shu. This is Li Ji's family background information. The deputy leader of the largest hunting group in Jincheng. S-level wind element. Li Shu slowly looked at the information in his hand, thinking constantly in his mind. Where is this Li Ji now? I have a few questions to ask him. He thought very simply. These information may be biased, but Li Ji and Chen Qi had a grudge, which meant that he knew Chen Qi very well. Li Yulong shook his head and said helplessly, Li Ji is dead. Dead. Li Shu raised his head, looked at Li Yulong, raised his eyebrows, and asked, how did you die? During an operation, someone from the order shot and killed him. The military has presented the investigation results and notified his family. Li Shu frowned and looked at the information in his hand again. It always feels wrong. After thinking for a while, he asked, what is this Li Yinian Wuzong realm called? Could it be that he didn't doubt the authenticity of Li Ji's death? Li Shu was not a fool. He felt something was wrong the first time. Being in the army and dying at the hands of people with order is nonsense no matter how you look at it. But the information is also very clear, and it was indeed someone in an orderly manner who took action. Li Yulong said, Li Yinian is investigating. He has doubts about Li Ji's death. Let's get in touch with Li Yinian and talk to him when we have time. After Li Shu finished speaking, he stood up and stretched. He is a little different from the children of the aristocratic family. He has no aloof aura at all, but looks very elegant. Just like Zhang Zesheng. He grew up listening to Zhang Zesheng's stories since he was a child. Geniuses from different families were hostile to Zhang Zesheng. On the contrary, he admired Zhang Zesheng very much. This also resulted in him involuntarily imitating Zhang Zesheng in every move he made. He is friendly and elegant, and can chat with anyone. This is the confidence brought to him by his strength and talent. He is confident that no one can stop him. SS-level talent, 5th level martial arts realm, this is his confidence. Although Chen Qi defeated Li Yulong and Li Lin, in his opinion, it was just like that. He didn't regard him as an opponent. The reason why I pay attention to Chen Qi is just because Chen Qi is a student of Zhang Zesheng. You mean my son was killed by someone else? In Jincheng, Li Yinian was sitting in the living room, his tone full of chill. Listening to the voice coming from the other end of the phone, the aura of Wu Zongjing suddenly broke out, and the furniture placed in the living room shattered. The person on the other end of the phone heard the sound and felt the chill in Li Yinian's tone. He chuckled. Li Yinian, I didn't say that. I'm just saying that your son's death may have been caused by someone else. If you ask me, your son was also short-lived. A small wave of beasts actually encountered the people of order. HMPH, I don't care about order or disorder. Li Yinian squinted his eyes flashed with coldness, and there was anger in his voice. You said, none of the people in order use spears. My son's wounds were from spears. The man on the other end of the phone smiled, and then said mysteriously, Li Yinian, you will receive an invitation today. I hope you will think about it carefully. Maybe you will know the answer you want after you accept the invitation. The reminder said, don't forget what I want. After saying that, he hung up the phone. Li Yinian's expression changed. Hello. There was a knock on the door, and a man wearing a courier uniform appeared at the door. Holding a courier bag in hand. Is this Mr. Li Yinian? Li Yinian raised his head and glanced at the express delivery in front of him, nodded slightly, and frowned. What's the matter? Here is your express delivery. You need to sign for it in person. You will receive an invitation today. The voice of the person on the other end of the phone flashed in his mind. Li Yinian nodded and signed. As soon as I returned to the living room, the phone rang. You've received the stuff. Li Yinian didn't speak. He held a black invitation letter in his hand, with a sword cut off on the cover, and the blade was dyed red with blood. The blood-red word, order, is full of chilling meaning. Think about it. If you can join in, the news of your son's death may be truly found out. The voice on the other end of the phone was full of temptation. The anger of revenge quietly ignited in Li Yinian's heart, and then evil thoughts emerged. What good is it? If it's just letting me know the reason for my son's death, it's not enough. Li Yinian was not carried away by the anger of revenge. He can reach the Wuzong realm not just because of his strength, but more importantly because he is very smart. Smart people tend not to be easily deceived. He knew exactly what the invitation in his hand meant. If he nodded in agreement, it meant that he had no way of turning back. Haha, of course not enough. The person on the other end of the phone chuckled, and then said slowly, strength, resources, and the ability to find the truth. If you are valuable enough, we can even make you a martial spirit realm or even a martial lord realm. Li Yinian was silent for a moment, and a light flashed in his eyes. After spending so many resources, the news of his son's death has still not been truly discovered, perhaps because the person on the other end of the phone wanted to use it as a bargaining chip. Order. I need to think about it, Li Yinian said in a deep voice, and then hung up the phone. He looked down at the invitation in his hand again and took a deep breath. It's not like he doesn't know about the organization order. A very strong organization in China, whose purpose is to establish a new order. This group of people is very crazy. Once he joins the order, everything he has now may become a bubble in the blink of an eye. But stronger strength is what he has always longed for. He is not young anymore and his talent is not strong enough. As a result, he seems to have no hope of progressing in the martial arts. The Wuzong realm is the end of him. Putting down the invitation, Li Yinian shook his head. He would not agree to it so quickly. Weighing the pros and cons, this is who he is. Name, Chen Qi. Realm, martial arts 2nd level. Physique, none. Talent, 3S talent Huyi. Spirit, not yet started. Talent skill, penetrate yang with 100 steps, hit rate increased by 100%. Cloud-piercing and air-piercing arrows, inject blood and spiritual energy into the arrows to penetrate the clouds and split the air. Eagle Eye Insight, consume spiritual power to gain eagle-like vision. The current discernible distance is 3 kilometers. The discernible distance is based on one's own strength. Next talent skill, unlocking conditions not met. Martial skill, wind-chasing spear, Xiao Chang. Skill technique, war spirit technique, first appearance of armored shadow. Weapon, broken army bow. The surrounding spiritual energy gradually quieted down, and the energy and blood in the body that was originally surging like river water slowly returned to calm. The light screen panel in front of Chen Qi displayed his current data. Nothing much has changed. The talent skills have not been increased, but a mental attribute has been added. 2nd level of martial arts. After consuming all 400 Longyuan points, Chen Qi finally broke through to the martial arts realm. And this time, he broke through 2 realms in a row. Arrive at the 2nd level of martial arts. Strength surges. It's a pity that the innate skills have not been awakened, he murmured, shaking his head slightly. There seems to be no pattern in the awakening of talent skills. From the very beginning to now, a total of only 2 talent skills have been awakened. The talent skill Divine Arrow disappeared and was replaced by the current cloud-piercing Sky Arrow. Stretching, Chen Qi looked out the window. In the distance, many people were walking slowly. Occasionally, his eyes passed over the small building where he was, and the door was closed. Some people shook their heads, turned and left. A smile appeared on the corner of Chen Qi's mouth. During this period, his reputation had completely spread throughout Qinlongyuan. Many people know his name. Chen Qi also knew that these people might be other people's pawns, and he was not annoyed. Instead, he was looking forward to seeing those people come to his door. Just in time to test your abilities. Looking at the people who were leaving again, he opened the closed door. Without stopping, he headed towards the place where Zhang Zesheng lived. Zhang Zesheng had said before that he was only allowed to go because he was busy breaking through to the martial arts realm. Not yet. The accommodation conditions in Qianlongyuan are very good. The students are all in single-family buildings, and the teachers who are strong are naturally not bad either. Even better than where the students live. Stepping into the area where the teacher lives, the spiritual energy here becomes more intense, but also more manic. Feeling the aura around him, Chen Qi felt relaxed all over. Great place, master. Pushing the door open, Zhang Zesheng sat leisurely in the living room and looked up at Chen Qi. When he felt the aura on his body, Zhang Zesheng's eyes flashed with appreciation. He smiled and nodded slightly, pointing to the sofa beside him. The speed is pretty good, second-level martial artist. Chen Qi grinned. He has always been short of resources, and this time 400 Longyuan points gave him a full meal. This is your Longyuan point card. Zhang Zesheng threw the point card in his hand to Chen Qi. Then he looked at Chen Qi and said, "Do you know why archers are called combat auxiliary characters?" Chen Qi was startled and said, "My close-range ability is weak and my attack ability is too weak." Zhang Zesheng nodded slightly. "What you said is just what the public thinks. Those people are not gifted as archers. How do they know what the shortcomings of archers' talents are?" After saying that, an extremely oppressive force suddenly appeared and pressed towards Chen Qi. Suddenly, Chen Qi felt as if a huge mountain had fallen, and the huge pressure made all his bones rattle. The sudden power surprised Chen Qi. Before he had time to think about it, the power he had just disappeared instantly. "What did you feel?" The aura around Zhang Zesheng disappeared instantly, as if he had never appeared before, and he returned to his gentle and easy-going appearance again. Chen Qi's eyes flashed. "Psychic power. How is your practice of the spiritual chain technique going?" Zhang Zesheng asked suddenly. "There is some progress, but it's slow." Chen Qi replied sheepishly that he didn't have much time to practice the spiritual condensation method first, but more to practice his own qi, blood, spiritual energy, etc. But he feels that his current mental strength is much stronger than before. He still doesn't know what the specific function of mental power is. But Zhang Zesheng's actions some time ago seemed to have told him the specific role of mental power. And the actions just now also told him that the role of mental power was more important than Chen Qi imagined. "Intensify your practice." Zhang Zesheng frowned and said, "The archer's talent must be cultivated in two areas. It is necessary to cultivate both mental strength and physical strength." Having said this, he paused and said, "In a few days, there will be some tasks released in the courtyard. You can go and get some tasks then." After saying that, Zhang Zesheng looked at Chen Qi in front of him, his black and white eyes full of light. The archer talent requires the use of arrows to fight enemies in the early stage, but this will not go far. It is good for dealing with weak enemies or strange beasts. As your strength increases, the effect of arrows on you will continue to weaken. At this time, you must find new attack methods. Mental power, aura, and blood are your new attack methods. Zhang Zesheng raised his hand, and a small arrow slowly condensed and appeared in his hand. He opened his mouth and said, "Using spiritual power as the foundation, qi, blood, and spiritual energy as the filling. When you reach the point of condensing arrows, you will be able to have new attack methods. I call it arrow. Master, what level of spiritual power do you need to turn an arrow into?" Chen Qi's eyes brightened as he looked at the arrow exuding a faint aura in Zhang Zesheng's hand. His current talent skill, Cloud Piercer and Sky Arrow, seems to be somewhat similar to what Zhang Zesheng said. The difference is that the cloud-piercing Sky Arrow can only inject energy, blood and spiritual energy into the arrow, which is far from what Zhang Zesheng can do. The small arrow slowly disappeared, and Zhang Zesheng explained with a smile, "The cultivation of spiritual power is divided into two steps. The first step is to concentrate, and the second step is to transform. Come here and let me see how your mental strength is now." Chen Qi came to Zhang Zesheng. "Look at my eyes." After Zhang Zesheng's words fell, a terrifying spiritual power instantly enveloped Chen Qi. In his mind, his mental energy suddenly surged like a lake. Zhang Zesheng's spiritual power was so powerful that as soon as he entered Chen Qi's mind, he suddenly felt the shocking scene in front of him. According to normal ordinary warriors, when they do not practice enough mental power to practice, their mental power is nothing more than a pool of water, like stagnant water. But what about Chen Qi? His mental power is like a lake, much stronger than a normal warrior. What made Zhang Zesheng slightly gratified was that although Chen Qi's mental power was strong, it was not of high quality and he did not know how to use it. This also made him feel that his master was much stronger than Chen Qi. Chen Qi felt Zhang Zesheng's spiritual power in his mind like a vast ocean. It seemed boundless, and just a slight fluctuation seemed to shatter his mental power. He is worthy of being the strong man who once killed Marquis Wu with 3 arrows. If Zhang Zesheng wanted to kill himself, he probably wouldn't need to take action. Mental power alone would be enough to kill him. The strong crushes the weak. With his mental power withdrawn, Zhang Zesheng's eyes looked strange. You said before that you made some progress, but it was slow. Chen Qi nodded and said doubtfully, I feel that the growth of mental power is not fast, it seems to be very slow. Zhang Zesheng's eyelids twitched, and for a moment he didn't know what to say. Chen Qi's current mental strength is almost comparable to that of a military general. Moreover, it is also a military commander realm that specializes in cultivating spiritual power. But this brat actually thinks the speed is too slow. I have been cultivating my spiritual power for decades, and it took several decades to achieve the spiritual power that I am now as big as the vast ocean. But what about Chen Qi? After all, you have only been practicing for a month. Various conjectures flashed through Zhang Zesheng's mind, but in the end it could only be attributed to Chen Qi's own mental power being different from ordinary people. After all, the speed of his cultivation is already different from ordinary people. If all E-level talents are like yours, then my human race won't be like this on the battlefield of all races. Alien beasts won't be able to wreak havoc for hundreds of years. Zhang Zesheng sighed. Chen Qi opened his mouth, but still did not reveal his actual talent. Zhang Zesheng's situation was also very difficult. During this period, he finally understood some things. The people behind the geniuses of the aristocratic family were very dissatisfied with Zhang Zesheng, but due to some reasons, they could not take action against Zhang Zesheng. There are reasons for Zhang Zesheng's own strength, as well as the things he holds in his hands. And the opinions of the strong. He is different. The talent he shows now is only E-level. Once his talent is exposed, the people from the aristocratic family will definitely target him crazily. Once Zhang Zesheng is restrained, he will be alone. Facing that group of people, my current strength is not enough to deal with it. Master, how is my mental power? Chen Qi was still a little confused. He practiced the mental condensation method, but he didn't know anything about the application of mental power. Zhang Zesheng's sigh made him a little curious. It's okay. Zhang Zesheng opened his mouth and said against his will. Can't say, can't boast. If this is a boast, then this kid will not be able to go to heaven. Zhang Zesheng adhered to the rule that a strict teacher produces a good disciple and told a lie. Chen Qi was stunned and asked softly, Master, you won't lie to me, right? What are you talking about? Zhang Zesheng stared and simply stopped continuing the topic. Your mental strength is pretty good, you can try turning it into an arrow. After speaking, he began to instruct Chen Qi on how to use his mental power. A trace of strange aura rose from Chen Qi's body. This is my first time and I am not very proficient in the application of mental power. An arrow just condensed out, but before he could be happy, it dissipated instantly. Zhang Zesheng smiled and shook his head, patiently teaching what to pay attention to. You should practice first. Normally, if you want to complete the transformation of an arrow, you need to be familiar with it for at least 3 days to a week. After failing several times in a row, Zhang Zesheng shook his head, gave an instruction, and then turned and walked out the door. Going out for a walk, this kid Chen Qi is not a normal E-level talent at all. Zhang Zesheng now suspects that Chen Qi may be S-level or even SS level. Chen Qi's expression remained unchanged, and he continued to mobilize his mental power to condense arrows. Qi and blood are constantly churning in the body, and spiritual energy is injected into the arrows transformed by mental power. The arrow seemed to be illusory and real, as if it would dissipate in the next second, and the arrow's body was constantly flowing with vitality, blood and spiritual energy. When the 3 of them unite, the arrow trembles. Chen Qi's eyes were calm, slowly condensing and solidifying. A light flowed, and an arrow composed of mental power, qi, blood, and spiritual energy appeared in front of him. Turned into an arrow. When Zhang Zesheng appeared at the door and looked at the arrow in Chen Qi's hand, his whole body felt bad. Master, it turned into an arrow. An arrow appeared in Chen Qi's hand. It is not as real or illusory as before, but is extremely solid, and at first glance it looks like a real arrow. The arrow is sharp, and spiritual power, blood, and aura linger on it. Instantly beautiful, but beneath this beauty lies endless murderous intent. Zhang Zesheng twitched the corner of his mouth, squeezed out a smile, nodded, and said lightly, "Well, not bad. It's a little worse than before. Keep working hard." "Yeah," Chen Qi nodded with a smile. He had no doubts about what Zhang Zesheng said. Zhang Zesheng glanced at the arrow in Chen Qi's hand again. "Okay, put it away, it's a waste of mental energy." After saying that, he walked to the study, took out a card, handed it to Chen Qi, and said, "I haven't made a move for many years, and I don't have any resources for you. These are the Longyuan points sent by those companies. I'll give you some of them." "Thank you, Master." Chen Qi accepted it happily, as he happened to be short of resources. That day, Zhang Zesheng asked those companies to send over 10,000 Longyuan points. "How many points are there in this card? There must be at least 5 or 6,000, right?" Zhang Zesheng didn't say much, and waved his hand. "Don't fall behind in the cultivation of spiritual power." "Okay, Master." Chen Qi didn't waste any time, turned around and left with a smile. Looking at Chen Qi's leaving figure, Zhang Zesheng murmured, "Chen Qi, speed up your growth." 7 days later. In the past few days, Chen Qi spent most of his time practicing the spiritual condensation method. Transforming arrows is already a familiar process. His information was clearly displayed on the light screen panel in front of him. Name, Chen Qi. Realm, 4th level of martial arts. Physique, none. Talent, 3S talent Huyi. Spirit, concentration realm. Talent skill, penetrate yang with 100 steps, hit rate increased by 100%. Spirit god blood arrow cloud piercing sky piercing arrow 3 yuan condensing arrow, 1 arrow pierces the cloud, 3 yuan unity, cloud piercing, sky splitting. Eagle eye insight, consume mental energy to gain eagle-like vision. The current discernible distance is 3 kilometers. The discernible distance is based on one's own strength. Martial skill, wind chasing spear, smart. Skill technique, war spirit technique, first appearance of armored shadow. Weapons, army breaking bow, cloud penetrating gun. When he successfully transformed an arrow for the first time, he awakened his natural skill again. This time, the spiritual god blood arrow did not replace the original cloud piercing sky arrow, but only added a brief introduction to it. He raised his hand slightly, and an arrow suddenly appeared in his hand. He waved his hand again, and the arrow disappeared. The consumption of spiritual power, qi and blood, and spiritual energy is not too great. Chen Qi's eyes flashed. Judging from the results in the past few days, the impact of condensing an arrow on myself is not too great. It can support condensed arrows at least 30 times. He was in the 4th level of martial arts, and the scorecard Zhang Zesheng gave him that day only had 600 points. He exchanged these 600 points for resources, including a spear. The progress is too slow. Chen Qi shook his head, somewhat dissatisfied. If Su Xingyuan and Zhang Ruya knew this, their teeth would be broken with jealousy. They are only at the 8th level of warriors now. There is still some distance between him and the 9th level, but Chen Qi has now reached the 4th level of martial arts. The gap between the two sides began to widen. This is the gap caused by talent. If Chen Qi didn't have enough resources in the early stage, I'm afraid he would be at least in the 5th level of martial arts now. Opening the window, there is a trace of mist in the air, which contains spiritual energy. Taking a deep breath is refreshing. After so many days, Chen Qi has completely adapted to life here. Today is the time for Qinlongyuan to release tasks. When Zhang Ruya, Su Xingyuan and Zhang Beitao arrived at the mission collection hall, many people had already arrived around them. When they saw Su Xingyuan and the others, many people's expressions were slightly condensed. Many people have seen the ring battle between Su Xingyuan and Lin Wei. A-level thunder talent, 7th level versus 8th level, Lin Wei's arm was crippled in one shot, and his martial arts path was cut off. Such ruthless tactics are still fresh in many people's minds. Ignoring the glances around him, Su Xingyuan stood quietly in the hall, chatting with Zhang Ruya and Zhang Beitao beside him. Okay, Lao Zhang, he is already at the 8th level of a warrior. It's okay, it's okay. Zhang Ruya chuckled. Xingyuan, you are so fast, you are also at the 8th level of a warrior. Su Xingyuan chuckled and shook his head. Sorry, I have learned a lot these days and accidentally reached the 9th level of the warrior realm. Zhang Ruya was stunned, her eyes full of surprise. Zhang Beidao glanced at Su Xingyuan and said calmly, what a coincidence, I am also a 9th level warrior. You, Su Xingyuan was stunned. What, do you want to try? Zhang Beidao raised his head slightly, a little arrogant. Su Xingyuan glanced at Zhang Beidao and said nothing. Although Zhang Beidao was arrogant, Su Xingyuan still remembered him when he spoke out against injustice that day in the ring. I'm too lazy to care about you. Zhang Beidao was very proud of the blow that hit Su Xingyuan, and then glanced around. Why isn't Chen Qi here yet? Did he forget? Probably not. Zhang Ruya did not participate in the bickering between the two. At this time, he shook his head and looked in the direction he came from, but did not see Chen Qi. Not far away, Wang Yuan also came to the hall where he received the mission. Many people who come here to earn resources. There are not many geniuses in the family, and the purpose of this group of people coming here is not to complete the task, but to experience. Being in a noble family, one enjoys abundant resources, but lacks the power to fight against the enemy. This time is a good opportunity. The tasks are varied. Many of them were killing strange beasts, and at the same time, they were also chasing enemies in other cities. Tasks can be claimed by different people or teams. When Chen Qi arrived, almost all the tasks had been received. Chen Qi. When those who had not left saw Chen Qi appear here, they immediately attracted everyone's attention. The eyes that looked at Chen Qi sparkled. Chen Qi had a one-on-one fight before, and he became famous in one battle. Chen Qi's eyes swept across the crowd and landed on the three of Su Xingyuan. He walked forward and nodded with a smile. You guys came so early. We just arrived. Zhang Ruya explained aloud. Zhang Beidao stood aside and looked at Chen Qi with a trace of doubt in his eyes. Su Xingyuan stared slightly, doubts flashing in his mind. Chen Qi, have you made a breakthrough? Zhang Beidao was surprised and asked aloud. After the words fell, Zhang Ruya and Su Xingyuan's eyes suddenly changed. Chen Qi smiled and nodded. I broke through accidentally. We are only at the 9th level of martial arts, and you are already at the 1st level of martial arts. Why are you pulling me away the more I chase you? Zhang Ruya smiled bitterly and sighed. Su Xingyuan suddenly felt a little discouraged. Chen Qi practiced too fast. Ah, no. Chen Qi shook his head. What's the meaning? The three of them were confused. Could it be the 2nd level of martial arts? I accidentally broke through to the 4th level of martial arts. After the words fell, the expressions of several people suddenly changed, and they looked at Chen Qi with disbelief in their eyes. 4th level of martial arts. When Wang Yuan saw Chen Qi appear, he raised his feet and walked towards Chen Qi. As soon as I came to a few people, I heard exclamations from several people before they had time to speak. The 4th level of martial arts. Wang Yuan's pupils shrank, the smile on his face suddenly froze, and he looked at Chen Qi with a look of shock. How long has it been? His S-level talent is only at the 9th level of a warrior. Being able to break through 2 realms in a short period of time already made him feel full of confidence. In the past, he lacked resources, but this time he obtained Dragon Academy points to exchange for resources and broke through to the 9th level of the warrior in one fell swoop. According to his understanding, no matter how fast Chen Qi is, he is not at the 1st level of martial arts at most. But what did he just hear? The 4th level of martial arts. He broke through 2 levels in a row, while Chen Qi broke through 5 levels in a row. It is not that simple for a warrior to defeat a warrior. If it was really that simple, there wouldn't be so many people in Qinlongyuan stuck in the 9th level of the warrior. For Chen Qi, there seems to be no resistance to the breakthrough of realm. Abnormal. He, Su Xingyuan, and others call themselves geniuses, but compared with Chen Qi, the word genius seems to have changed a bit. If they are geniuses, then who is Chen Qi? Noticing Wang Yuan's complicated gaze, Zhang Ruya said comfortingly, you'll be fine as long as you get used to it. Su Xingyuan twitched the corner of his mouth. During this period, he hardly dared to stop practicing for a moment. But the gap between them and Chen Qi is getting wider and wider. After coming to Qinlongyuan, Chen Qi seemed to have completely transformed. The 4th level of martial arts. He seemed to have no intention of pursuing him anymore. Wang Yuan. Chen Qi smiled and nodded. Wang Yuan took the initiative to show his goodwill before, and later revealed that he wanted to do a mission with Chen Qi and the others. A genius from Yandu Wuhan University, one of the top 10 talents among freshmen. He was also one of the 2 people in the top 10 who were suppressed by Zhang Wen. He once asked Wang Yuan and Shen Zheng's situation. Wang Yuan looked complicated, shook his head and told the truth about the suppression of the 2 people. There are 2 options, either accept the recruitment of geniuses from the family or be suppressed. Wang Yuan disagreed, and Shen Zheng's chose another path. Chen Qi had no feelings about this. Shen Zheng's choice seemed to be correct. Different ways don't work together. Shaking his head and throwing away the thoughts in his mind, Chen Qi's eyes fell on the mission displayed on the screen in the mission hall. Basically all the simple tasks with high points have been collected. Wang Yuan explained aloud. A mission can be claimed repeatedly by different teams, but a mission can only be claimed by a maximum of 4 people or teams. The tasks left now are either too far away, too dangerous, and the rewards are not very high. Chen Qi glanced at the remaining tasks on the screen in front of him. Chasing Wang Shui, point reward, 100 points, target strength is at the 3rd level of martial arts, current location, Shuadong City. Too low, Shuadong City is at least more than 2,000 kilometers away from where they are now. For such a long distance, there is only a reward of 100 points. It's not cost effective, and the target strength is still at the 3rd level of martial arts. The person who can take on this task must at least be at the 2nd level of martial arts. The risk is too high and the return is too low. No wonder it was left behind. While several people were choosing which tasks to take on, a new task suddenly appeared on the screen. Destroy the enemy. Target: Jincheng. The target is the lowest warrior at the 9th level. Point rewards will be determined based on completion. It is recommended that the number of people in the team that takes on this task should not be less than 5. When they saw this mission, several people's eyes flashed. I decided to take on this task right away. Although the mission does not mention the number of enemies, the conditions for accepting the mission are enough to show that this mission has a lot of rewards. After accepting the mission, several people quickly went back and prepared to set off. Wang Yuan had already finished cleaning up when he came here. He walked beside Chen Qi, walked towards Chen Qi's dormitory, and said aloud, "We are definitely not the only ones taking on this task. There may be geniuses from aristocratic families, and even Wuhan University, as well as people from Wuhan University outside." "What do you mean?" Chen Qi was confused. "You mean, these tasks are not only released by Qianlong Academy, but also by other Wuhan universities?" Wang Yuan nodded. "Yes. I have heard some news about Qinlongyuan from some geniuses from aristocratic families before. Qinlongyuan is led by the Wuyu Education Bureau, and several other parties cooperate. The priority is the highest. If there is a task, it will be released to Qinlongyuan as soon as possible, and then it will be released to other Wuhan University with a slight delay." Chen Qi nodded. "So, we may meet other students from Wuhan University this time." Wang Yuan smiled and nodded. Chen Qi had nothing to pack, so he took the few remaining resources and 2 sets of clothes and left directly. Jincheng is more than 2,000 kilometers away from Yandu. While Chen Qi and others were heading to Jincheng Wuhan Bureau, Wu Kang frowned and asked in a deep voice, "Has the message for help been sent out?" How did the Wuyu Bureau respond? Li Feng stood in front of him, nodded and replied, "The message has been sent out, and the Wuyu Education Bureau responded that this time there will be cooperation from the military as well as cooperation from some Wuhan students." Upon hearing the news, Wu Kang raised his eyebrows. "It's just nonsense. That group of people are all lunatics. It was not easy to find their traces, but they even let Wushu University students who have little experience in fighting enemies participate. Do they think this operation is just playing house? Without experience against the enemy, these people may be killed if they are not careful." Li Feng smiled bitterly. He also felt that the decision of the Wuyu Education Bureau was childish. Perhaps they also regard this operation as a test for Wuhan University students. That's all he could think. Wu Kang sighed softly, and then thought of Chen Qi inexplicably. Okay, when the time comes, try to send those students from Wuhan University as far away as possible so as not to get in the way. Li Feng nodded. Traces of the order organization were found in Jincheng. After a little investigation, Wu Kang asked himself whether he might not be able to eat it. Although he was a second-level general, he didn't know if there were any strong ones among Order's group. He can't take action casually. Everything must be based on stability. What made him feel a little relieved was that the military would send someone here this time. Unlike the group of students from Wuhan University, all the people sent by the military were killed in a sea of blood. Tell the people in the hunting group in Jincheng City to cooperate with this operation and control various arteries to prevent that group of people from escaping. Jincheng is so big that even with the addition of military personnel, it is simply not enough to block off all the important roads. This time the operation is not too big, and it is not yet certain how many people the military will send over. The beast-suppressing army. After Shang Han explained something, Wu Lu nodded and left. Shang Han would definitely not take action easily when it came to destroying the orderly people in Jincheng. In the army, any action required approval at all levels. Wu Lui took a group of recruits who had just completed training some time ago, which was enough to handle it. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.